Chapter 1572. Yan Zhaoge closed his eyes and pondered for a while. Then he opened his eyes and looked at Yang Jian, asking, "Do you know if the great Taoist Xuandu received the Purple Tenuti Emperor's letter or someone else's letter?" "There was a letter." Yang Jian revealed a look of admiration and nodded. "Senior apprentice uncle Xuandu asked the elder lord about it. The elder lord didn't say anything, so senior apprentice uncle Xuandu handled it himself." In the end, senior apprentice uncle Xuandu went to the heavenly court's divine palace. However, he was obstructed by the Dipankara ancient Buddha. Yan Zhaoge raised his head slightly. After a while, a bitter smile appeared on his face. "Listening to what you said, it's really a blow to my spirit. The elder lord's thoughts couldn't be guessed. It was too uncertain to rely on him. It's also hard to figure out the elder lord's thoughts outside of Taoism." Yang Jian smiled. "Otherwise, he wouldn't have made a move during the Middle Era. As the saying goes, one's Tao heart is hard to fathom. There's nothing he wouldn't do. It's normal for him to change his mind after making a decision. It's absurd to use normal people's morals and thinking habits to demand such an existence." Yang Jian's smile didn't diminish. He sighed. "To put it boldly, it's not impossible for the elder lord to suddenly make a move and exterminate the entire three clear lineage. There's no reason for it. Perhaps he had such thoughts at that time and did it. There's no reason to talk about it. The reason in our eyes is useless to the elder lord. If we're still restricted by the reason of this world, how can we call it transcendence?" Yan Zhaoge and Feng Yunsheng remained silent. What Yang Jian said just now was naturally an extreme assumption. However, it wasn't impossible. From a certain perspective, this assumption was the same as the elder lord fighting against the other Tao ancestors in order to protect the Taoism lineage. "It's not that our reason is useless," Yan Zhaoge added. "It might be useless, but it might also be useful. It was up to the elder lord to decide whether to follow the world's logic or not. Perhaps in his eyes, all living beings in this world, no matter if they were Orthodox Taoism, immortal court heretics, Buddhism, demon race, or even 9 underworld's great devils, were all equal without any difference. It was also possible that in the next moment, he would be extremely protective and actively participate in the game with the other Tao ancestors for the sake of caring for the direct descendants of the Tao sect. He would do anything. It was even possible for him to help the celestial court suppress the orthodox Taoism lineage. Of course, most of the time, the Grand Supreme Elder's reaction to the world was indifferent. However, what made everyone helpless was that they could not guess what the Grand Supreme Elder was thinking. There was no pattern to it. They could only be sure when he really made a move. When a Tao realm powerhouse made a move, it was likely that there was a deeper meaning behind it. At that time, it was difficult to see through his true thoughts. This was the reason why the other forces did not exterminate the orthodox Taoism. Perhaps when others attacked, the Grand Supreme Elder did not care. However, many years later, there was no telling when the Grand Supreme Elder would suddenly turn hostile without warning and seek revenge. In terms of strength, the Elder Supreme Lord was equivalent to the Grand Pure Lord of Tao and virtue before he transcended. It was enough to make other Tao ancestors fear him. There were only a few Tao ancestors in total. In the battle between them, the sudden addition of the Grand Supreme Elder was enough to affect the balance of the battle. What was even more terrifying was that no one could guarantee if the Grand Supreme Elder represented the will of the 3 clear Grand Masters that had already transcended. The 3 clear Grand Masters that had already transcended were like the Grand Supreme Elder. Hard to fathom. Perhaps the 3 clear Grand Masters wouldn't care if the Grand Supreme Elder's projection perished. However, it might provoke the 3 clear Grand Masters to descend upon the world once again. That was something that no one would be happy to see. After all, even if the Tathagata Buddha and Nyuwa sovereign who had also transcended returned, the result would still be 2 against 3. Unfortunately, the awkward thing was that the orthodox Taoism could not guarantee that they would benefit from this. They might even suffer from a calamity. This is a pain in the ass. Yen Zhaoga held his forehead and smiled bitterly. However, think optimistically. The immeasurable heavenly Lord's heart must not be at peace for the past few years. In the past, he took a risk and succeeded. However, who knew when the Grand Supreme Elder would suddenly look for revenge? Of course, there might also be surprises. For example, the Grand Supreme Elder might help the Immortal Court. However, this would either lead to great sorrow or great joy. However, the sorrow and joy weren't decided by him. Moreover, he didn't know when it would happen and whether it would happen for sure. Not many people would like it. At the very least, Yen Zhaoga didn't like it. This is the current situation in front of us. Yang Jian smiled. There's no use in being dissatisfied or complaining. The key is to guide the situation to develop in a direction that's beneficial to us. He said in a self-mocking manner, I've been recuperating in the Tushita Palace for the past few years. Even if the Grand Supreme Elder didn't care about me, I've still benefited from it. That's natural. Yen Zhaoga also smiled. The so-called if is only an if for now. In reality, the reason why our orthodox Taoism still exists and shows signs of revival is more or less related to the Grand Supreme Elder. The smile on his face slowly disappeared. Only time waits for no man. Regarding the immortal ending ancient sword, don't be impatient. Yang Jian stood up. I'll give you an answer later. Then he passed a talisman to Yen Zhaoga. The treasure written on the talisman belonged to the Earth Queen. Yen Zhaoga received the talisman and kept it carefully. Then he cupped his hands towards Yang Jian. Thank you, Taoist brother. It's already been quite long. Let's end our conversation here. Let's meet again. Yang Jian nodded towards Yen Zhaoga and Feng Yinsheng. His figure gradually disappeared, and the brilliant starry river in front of him started collapsing. The dim yellow radiance reappeared from afar, as if the boundaries of the cosmos had shrunk, replacing the starry river and the cosmos, manifesting a world. The concept of the Earth Queen's earthly deity reappeared, and that warm and heavy feeling enveloped Yen Zhaoga and Feng Yinsheng once again. See you again. The Earth Queen's voice resounded and went far away. The dim, yellow world disintegrated. Yen Zhaoga and Feng Yinsheng returned to the real boundless void's outskirts. Yang Jian transformed into the Earth Queen's earthly deity and traversed the void. After a long and arduous journey, he once again merged with a star and waited quietly. After a long time, an old man suddenly appeared within the star. He wore a fishtail crown and a red robe. His appearance was strange, and he had a long beard. In front of the old man, a graceful, gentle, and dignified woman appeared. She seemed like the Mother Earth. I'm happy to see you, Taoist Hutu. The red-robed old man stroked his beard and smiled. The woman said mildly, It's all thanks to Taoist Xuandu's help, allowing me to recuperate in the Tushita Palace. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to live until now to see you again. Chapter 1573. Upon hearing the woman's words, the red-robed old man smiled. Fellow Taoist Hutu is blessed. You will definitely be able to turn misfortune into fortune. Luya Dao, if you and the others from the Astro Mountain Star Ocean hadn't come out of seclusion back then, perhaps more of us could have turned calamities into blessings, the woman in luxurious clothes said coldly. The red-robed elder in front of her was a legendary figure whose name had shaken multiple epochs, Tao Lord Luya. He was one of the most ancient figures in this world, one who had been born before the heavens and had a deep foundation. during the Archaic era. He had already become famous. He had transformed into the great sun golden crow and illuminated the world. Empress Enviwa created all living creatures, and the gold crows were modeled after her image and the intent realm of her magic. During the ancient epoch, he had taken the form of a Taoist, which was his current appearance. He had participated in the God-sealing Great War, gaining a great reputation. During the Middle Era, Taoist Lu Ye re-entered the central blessed lands of Saha and transformed into Vairocana. He was one of the few Buddhist bigwigs in the central blessed lands of Saha. After the Middle Era, the Maitreya Buddha changed the central blessed lands of Saha into the blessed lands of the White Lotus and ascended to the Tao ancestors' position, causing the Buddhas of the central blessed lands of Saha to leave. Mahavairocana was one of them. However, he didn't join the Western Pure Lands. Instead, he left Buddhism and transformed into Tao Lord Luya to enter the Astro Mountains Starry Sea. Apart from the chaos of the universe during the great calamity when the demons of the Astro Mountains Starry Seas made a brief appearance, Tao Lord Luya and the demon race had been living in seclusion most of the time in this era. In recent years, the demon race had finally come out of seclusion and officially stepped into the world again. The Eastern monarch Tai rarely interfered with worldly affairs. Currently, most of the matters in the Astro Mountains Star Sea were handled by Taoist Lord Luya. He was the number 2 figure in the Astro Mountains Star Sea and the current second-in-command of the demon race. Generally speaking, he rarely participated in the battle. Most of the time, he left it to the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles, Yellow Wind Devil, and other great beasts to command the battlefield. It was rare for Tao Lord Luya to leave the Grand Essence Heaven and the Astro Mountains Starry Seas. However, the woman in luxurious clothes, who had always been gentle and generous, did not bother to speak to this old powerful figure who had crossed over the 3 schools of demons, Taoism, and Buddhism. Tao Lord Luya didn't mind the woman's cold words, and he continued to smile calmly. Many things have their own destiny, be it me or the other Taoists. We're just following the will of the heavens. Fellow Hutu, it's a cause for celebration. It's only natural for you and the other Tao sects to seek revenge on us. However, we naturally won't wait for death without doing anything. Let's just fight again. Just as I've just received news, Taoist Spirit Tooth was killed by a Taoist of the Tao sect not long ago. He said with a smile, "Of course, before the karma is settled, it won't affect us from sowing other good karma and good karma, right?" The well-dressed woman remained silent. Taoist Luya said, "Previously, the Jade Void Palace reappeared and quickly disappeared. I wonder if it was your doing, fellow Taoist Hutu, if there's anyone in this world who can definitely find the Hollow Jade Palace. It has to be the Elder Lord. Since you came out of the Tushita Palace, you must have received the Elder Lord's guidance?" "That's right," the well-dressed woman said calmly. She glanced at Taoist Luya. "I know what you're thinking about, Taoist Lord. The Jade Void glazed lamp is indeed in the Hollow Jade Palace. I brought it out and sent it back to the Tushita Palace." Taoist Luya sighed. "I'm sorry, fellow Taoist Hutu." He looked at the well-dressed woman. "I wonder if fellow Taoist Hutu can bring out the Jade Void glazed lamp and let me take a look?" "Sure." The well-dressed woman did not avoid his gaze. She looked him in the eye and said straightforwardly, "But I need you to give me something in exchange." Taoist Luya asked, "What do you want, fellow Taoist Hutu?" "I want a damaged zither." "Are you willing to exchange it, Taoist Lord?" The well-dressed woman said calmly. Taoist Luya's gaze suddenly froze. The smile on his face faded, and he remained silent. "If you feel that it's too much, you can forget about it." The well-dressed woman said, "You don't have to borrow the Jade Void glazed lamp. However, this is the simplest and safest path. isn't it? Keeping the zither doesn't guarantee that the other paths will work. Taoist Lu Ye stared at the well-dressed woman for a long time. Suddenly, he asked fellow Taoist Hutu, or the other Taoists of the Taoism lineage, do you know the whereabouts of the last sword of the 4 immortal exterminating swords? That's right. The well-dressed woman did not hide anything and answered honestly. Taoist Lu Ye's expression relaxed. He did not continue asking about the whereabouts of the immortal extinguishing ancient sword and how she knew about it. He nodded slowly. As long as I can obtain what I want from the jade void glazed lamp, the zither will be yours, fellow Taoist Hutu. That's great. The well-dressed woman nodded calmly and turned to leave. In a Buddhist land in the Western Pure Lands, Yin Jiao, who was previously severely injured, appeared with the red Inferno Dhamma Buddha Lord, who was even more severely injured than him. Venerable White Xiong quickly led them into the temple to meet the Dipankara ancient Buddha. The Dipankara ancient Buddha extended his hand and tapped lightly. Within the illumination of the glazed ancient lamp, the perfected Buddha light spread out and enveloped the red Inferno Dhamma Buddha Lord within it. The severely injured red Inferno Dhamma Buddha Lord sat cross-legged with his palms together. Although his aura was still weak, he was slowly getting out of his predicament. He would not die from the injuries caused by the great sage, heaven's equal. Then the Dipankara ancient Buddha called Venerable White Xiong to bring over a golden alms bowl filled with medicinal pills and passed it to Yin Jiao. After thanking the Dipankara ancient Buddha, Yin Jiao swallowed the medicinal pills and sat down to meditate. As he recuperated from his injuries, he recounted everything that happened. If that's the case, it seems like this karma has to be settled with the last sword. The Dipankara ancient Buddha smiled and said, return to the immortal court to recuperate. Send my regards to the immeasurable Tao ancestor. Yin Jiao left the Buddhist land. Master, is it okay for the Jade Void Palace to reappear? Venerable White Xiong asked after sending Yin Jiao off. The Dipankara ancient Buddha closed his eyes and pondered, the primordial Lord of Heaven has transcended, and the Jade Void Palace has gone into hiding. There shouldn't be any treasures left inside. What do they want from the Jade Void Palace? After Yen Zhaoge and Feng Yunsheng bid farewell to Yang Jian, they returned to the awakened sky cosmos. On the way, Yen Zhaoge frowned slightly and fell into deep thought. Regardless of whether his conversation with Yang Jian was true or not, at the very least, he managed to obtain more information. Combining everything he knew, Yen Zhaoge felt a clearer picture unfolding in front of his eyes. Only he couldn't be sure if it was the truth. I followed your guidance and searched for the traces left behind by the Taoist Heavenly Lord's cave manor. Indeed, I managed to obtain some new information. Feng Yunsheng, who was hidden in his right eye, said, unfortunately, the matters of the world are unpredictable. The Taoist Heavenly Lord had perished in the past, and the immortal ending sword was in the immeasurable Heavenly Lord's hands. Chapter 1574. While Yen Zhaoge and the others searched for the immortal extermination sword, Feng Yunsheng followed his instructions and searched for the traces left behind by the Lord of the Taoist Way's cave manor. She hoped to obtain more clues so that they could locate the immortal ending sword in the future. After Feng Yunsheng was done, she rushed to the agreed location and met up with Yen Zhaoge and the others. Finally, she suddenly made a move and killed Yin Jiao, the Yellow Wind Devil, and the others, helping Yen Zhaoge and the others to break out of the encirclement and turn the tables around. On the other side, the incongruence Divine Mother had also successfully obtained the immortal extermination sword. Everything went smoothly, and everyone was satisfied. However, the new information obtained from Yang Jian alerted Yen Zhaoge and the others. Although we can't be absolutely sure that Yang Erlang's information is true, we have to prepare for the worst. Yan Zhaoge lightly rubbed his temples and said, "If we're not careful, we might be able to turn the tables around." Although they had the 3 swords in hand, the difficulty of plucking a Dao ancestor's teeth from the tiger's mouth wasn't small at all. If they were careless, they might just end up as food. Previously, they had painstakingly planned for such a long time. Finally, they could see the light at the end of the tunnel. If they hesitated for the sake of stability, they wouldn't be able to change their current situation. Their originally good momentum of rapid development might stop at any time, or even reverse. We must obtain the immortal ending sword. However, we have to think about how to obtain it. Yan Zhaoge said, "If the news doesn't leak out, the heretics wouldn't know that we've already discovered the truth. They wouldn't keep it a secret either. They would definitely covet the entire immortal extermination formation, and even want to capture us all. Under such circumstances, things would naturally fall on the next time Yan Zhaoge and the others searched for the sword. The immeasurable heavenly lord, the immortal court, and even the Western Pure Lands might have secretly set up a trap using the immortal ending sword as bait to bait Yan Zhaoge and the others. However, if they want to bait us and walk into their trap, unknowingly, they would have to take out some money. Otherwise, even if we don't know about it, we wouldn't fall for it." Yan Zhaoge let out a light sigh. The immeasurable heavenly lord wouldn't be holding onto the immortal ending ancient sword. Otherwise, it would be very easy for you, Yunsheng, Senior Suwa, the incongruence Divine Mother, and the other Taoism heavenly immortals to notice it. If he wants to fish, he has to throw out this bait. There's a chance that we'll bite the bait. The danger lies in how we'll unhook the hook and how we'll escape from the layers of nets. Feng, Yunsheng understood. After all, he is a Dao realm expert, and he is nearby. If he attacks, he won't give us time to refine the celestial slashing ancient sword and set up the celestial slaying formation. At that time, we won't be able to block the might of the Dao ancestor, and we will be captured. Yan Zhaoge curled his lips. Danger, danger. Fortune is always accompanied by danger. Let's see what methods Yang Erlang has. Otherwise, the danger this time would probably be even greater. He said that he wanted to exchange for an opportunity with the help of the jade virtual glazed lamp. But where did he start? Feng Yunsheng raised her eyebrows slightly. Could it be that he's looking for the Dipankara ancient Buddha? During the ancient era, there were rumors of 3 lamps. They were related to the primordial heavenly lord, the lord of Tao and virtue, as well as the Dipankara ancient Buddha, who had entered the Tao and transformed into the Dipankara Taoist. Yan Zhaoge pondered. That's possible. However, that's very ancient. If there's really a trick to it, I feel like the Dipankara ancient Buddha had already planned it during the ancient era. At that time, he had entered Taoism and transformed into the Dipankara Taoist. His relationship with Taoism was rather close, and it was convenient for him to satisfy his needs. Yan Zhaoge even suspected that the reason why he had joined Taoism in the past was because of this place. The related matters had already happened a long time ago. Yan Zhaoge felt that it shouldn't have been delayed until now. The opportunity that Yang Jian mentioned might not be related to the Dipankara ancient Buddha. In comparison, he recalled some records in the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Martial Repository. In this era, before the Great Calamity, the Jade Clear Taoism's experts had subdued devils. After sending the Devil of Fire of that era to perish, they had coincidentally obtained a bit of the Fire Seed Devil's spirit. At that time, in order to further understand the matter of vanquishing devils, the Fire Seed Devil's spirit was preserved. However, it wasn't easy to preserve it. The Jade Clear Taoism's martial art practitioners could only think of the Jade Illusory Palace's Jade Illusory glazed lamp and the 8 scenic palace lantern. After visiting the Elder Lord at the Tushita Palace, the Elder Lord directed them to the Jade Clear Lineage's Jade Illusory Palace. Since then, the Fire Seed Devil's spirit had been preserved within the Jade Illusory Glazed Lamp. Compared to the ancient relationship between the Jade Illusory Glazed Lamp and the Dipankara Ancient Buddha, the era of this matter was much closer. Yan Zhaoge's intuition told him that what Yang Jian said was related to this Fire Seed Devil's spirit. Only, Yan Zhaoge had a few guesses about who Yang Jian was using this thing to communicate with. However, he couldn't be sure. If he's talking to the 9 underworlds, what did the 9 underworlds trade the immortal extermination sword for? Yan Zhaoge pondered as he sped through the boundless void. Oh, right. Everyone congratulated you upon meeting you, but I haven't congratulated you yet. While walking, Yan Zhaoge said, "Congratulations on ascending to the grand heavenly immortal realm. You're now undying and coexisting with the world." Feng Yunsheng, who was in his right eye, sighed and said, "I've finally taken this step. Looking back, I still feel like I'm walking on thin ice." Yan Zhaoge also sighed softly. "This time, you'll have to take the risk." "It's fine." Feng Yunsheng said gently, "Since I've walked on this path, I've reached a height that many others might not even be able to reach in thousands or even tens of thousands of years. It's only natural for me to take on more risks. Besides, the outcome is good." She smiled. "I feel that it's good to be able to accompany you like this, and not worry about whether I'll be a burden to you. No matter how big the risk is, it's fine." Yan Zhaoge smiled as well, but he didn't reply. The biggest and most dangerous trial had yet to arrive. "Oh, right. I obtained a decent treasure this time," said Feng Yunsheng with a smile. An illusory figure appeared in Yan Zhaoge's right eye. It was a small bell that resembled a bell, soul-absorbing bell. Yan Zhaoge nodded. "Indeed, it's a powerful treasure for slaughter. It can kill most of those below the grand, heavenly immortal realm. If Senior Gao didn't possess the immortal trapping sword, he might not have been able to deal with this treasure." This was all thanks to Yin Jiao's jade, clear lineage cultivation being crippled by the Lord of Broad Accomplishment. Due to that, he could only cultivate unorthodox arts and couldn't unleash the soul-absorbing bell's full might. This treasure can still be used against grand heavenly immortals. Feng Yunsheng said, "It can also be used as one of our sect's greatest treasures. If someone were to bring it along, they could attack or defend." After pondering for a while, Yan Zhaoge said, "Precisely because it's useful against grand heavenly immortals, the most suitable owner is still you." Chapter 1575. The soul-absorbing bell could be considered as Feng Yunsheng's spoils of war. Moreover, Yan Zhaoge wasn't trying to take care of his wife. Instead, he was merely stating the facts. As such, Feng Yunsheng didn't hesitate. After pondering for a while, she smiled and said, "All right." As the two chatted, they returned to the awakened sky cosmos and returned to the sky beyond skies. Xue Fei, Gao Qingxian, and the others had already returned. Xue Fei, Yan Zhaoge's North Ocean clone, and Pan Pan were currently recuperating in seclusion. Gao Qingxian stayed at the Broad Creed Mountain as a guest, waiting for the two's return. After the two met, Yan Zhaoge only mentioned about the immortal ending sword and didn't talk about Yang Jian. It wasn't that he didn't trust Gao Qingxian and Xue Chuqin. Rather, it was better for fewer people to know about many things. If more people knew about it, it would mean more traces and clues, which would make it easier for the enemy to deduce. Gao Qingxian and the others could understand this. Merely hearing about the celestial extinguishing ancient sword was enough to make their hearts heavy. It's hard to tell if there'll be a change in the situation now. "Let's wait and see," Yan Zhaoge said, Let's feign ignorance first, hoping to find an opportunity to play along with them. Xue Chuqing, Gao Qingxian, and the others nodded. Then we'll just fake it for 49 years. Gao Qingxian stood up. According to what you said, Zhaoge, the Dao ancestors might be able to deduce the exact interval between your two techniques. Yan Zhaoge nodded. That's right. If the heretics were to scheme against us, the immortal ending sword would only reappear after 49 years. Only then would they release the bait, giving us a chance. Otherwise, if they're focused on hiding the immortal ending sword, we wouldn't be able to do anything. Even so, we still have to adapt to the situation. Xue Chuqing said, in the coming years, we have to pay close attention to the battle between the two heretics. After Yan Zhaoge explained about the immortal ending sword, Xue Chuqing told them about the immortal court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus current situation. While Yan Zhaoge and the others were searching for the immortal extermination sword, the immortal court, and the blessed lands of the White Lotus were still fighting intensely. About 50 years ago, the immeasurable heavenly Lord and the future Buddha were locked in a fierce battle over the humanly essenced stone fragment that originally belonged to the Tai Nirvana heavenly Lord. Although the humanly essenced stone fragment had fallen into the hands of the future Buddha, the immeasurable heavenly Lord had never given up. He had been entangled with the future Buddha to this day. The immortal court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus, as well as the Western Pure Lands and the demon race, were constantly waging war against each other. Others might not be able to directly determine the outcome of the battle between the Dao ancestors, but the intense battle between the two heretic sects over the number of incense offerings was getting more and more intense. If one of them suffered too much, it might attract the Dao ancestors' help. As a result, the battle between the two Dao ancestors was naturally affected. As a result, the large-scale war between the immortal court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus had already lasted for close to 50 years. In the history of the war between the two sides, although there had been more than 100 years of fierce battles, they were extremely rare. An all-out war that lasted for 50 years was relatively rare. After all, in addition to the Great War of Faith, stabilizing the power of faith also required rest and recuperation. It was the right thing to do. But this time it was about the humanly essenced stone fragment. So the two sides were obviously fighting with all their might. The appearance of the immortal extermination sword could be considered as an interlude. The demon race and the blessed lands of the White Lotus had sent more experts to fight for the immortal extermination sword. As a result, they were naturally weaker against the immortal court and the Western Pure Lands, explained Xue Chuqing. The immortal court sent Yin Jiao, while the blessed lands of the White Lotus sent the sword master of the Six Paths, Chu Su. Although Yin Jiao had been famous since the ancient epoch as a heavenly immortal heretic, his strength was inferior to the sword master of the Six Paths, Chu Su. Without the two of them, the blessed lands of the White Lotus would undoubtedly be more affected. However, the blessed lands of the White Lotus had the absolute advantage in terms of the number of grand, heavenly, immortal, and grand virtual realm experts. Without Chu Su, although the impact was huge, the immortal court managed to pull the advantage back to a balance of power. The outcome was still acceptable. The one that truly affected the war was the demon race. The yellow wind beast, the spirit tooth immortal, and the dragon head immortal were dispatched in an attempt to retrieve the immortal extermination sword. As for the Western Pure Lands, they only sent the red Inferno Draw Buddha Lord. This forced the demon race to think of more ways to fill the gap. On the other hand, the Western Pure Lands took advantage of the situation. As a result, the battle between the immeasurable heavenly Lord and the future Buddha was affected, forcing the future Buddha to divert his attention to the immortal court. Facing the immeasurable heavenly Lord's relentless pursuit, the future Buddha couldn't refine the humanly essence stone's fragment as soon as possible. What was even more awkward was the fact that the blessed lands of the White Lotus and the demon race had sent 4 grand heavenly realm experts. In the end, they still couldn't retrieve the immortal extermination sword, and they even lost the Spirit Tooth Immortal's life. Although the Red Inferno Draw Buddha Lord was heavily injured and couldn't rejoin the battle within a short period of time, the blessed lands of the White Lotus and the demon race were at a greater disadvantage. Previously, I thought that the heretics and Orthodox Buddhism had made a choice, prioritizing the humanly essence stone's fragment over the immortal extermination sword. Xue Chuqing said, "From the looks of it now, that's not the case. Instead, they already had other plans." That's right. They didn't prioritize the humanly essence stone's fragment. Instead, it's the exact opposite, Yen Zhaoge pondered, and said, "I'm guessing that the immeasurable heavenly Lord might continue fighting against the future Buddha like this, all the way until I find the immortal ending sword 49 years later." Feng Yinsheng, Xue Chuqing, and Gao Qingxuan's gazes turned solemn. They understood what Yen Zhaoge meant. At that time, he would give up on the humanly essence stone's fragment for the future Buddha to refine and suddenly turn back to deal with us. If everything went smoothly, the immortal court might obtain the immortal extermination 4 swords and the complete immortal extermination formation. Its value far surpassed a single humanly essence stone's fragment. With the 2 heretics clashing endlessly, our Orthodox Taoism's situation would be much more relaxed, just like how we're currently searching for the immortal extermination sword. Yen Zhaoge's mouth revealed a hint of a smile. By the time we're searching for the immortal ending sword, if their battle still hasn't ended, it'll be beneficial for us to act boldly. It could be considered as luring the snake out of its hole. The other party's intentions are probably to settle the score 49 years later, after seeing how much fun we're having right now. Yen Zhaoge laughed self-mockingly. He shook his head and said, "Let's pay close attention to the battle between the 2 heretics." Within the Western Pure Lands, within a Buddhist kingdom, the Dipankara ancient Buddha sat on a green lotus and closed his eyes in deep thought. After a long time, he opened his eyes and muttered to himself, "Isn't it a little too early?" The Buddha stood up from the green lotus and left his Buddhist kingdom. He headed towards the core of the Western Pure Lands. "Namo Amitabha, please tell me the path to the Tushita Palace." Buddha. Chapter 1576. At the center of the Western Pure Lands, there was a Buddhist temple. Lights were lit up and 7-colored radiance shrouded the temple. The Dipankara ancient Buddha arrived here and bowed towards the temple. This was where the master of the Western Pure Lands, one of the 2 Buddhist patriarchs, Amitabha, resided. No sound came from within the temple towards the Dipankara ancient Buddha's request. Only a 12-petaled green lotus flew out and landed in front of the Dipankara ancient Buddha. "My Buddha is merciful," the Dipankara ancient Buddha thanked, and climbed onto the 12-petaled green lotus. The lotus then brought him out of the Western Pure Lands and into the void's outskirts. Then it started rising again, as if it was heading towards a place even higher than the void's outskirts. The Dipankara ancient Buddha sat on the 12-petaled green lotus. He remained silent as his thoughts drifted. During the time of the Great Calamity, he had also walked the same path towards the same destination. It was just that what he was going to do this time was different. The green lotus platform carried the ancient Dipankara Buddha, Gao Sheng, and gradually approached a place. The location was hard to determine, and its traces were hard to locate. It was like an illusory immortal world. An old friend has come to visit. I wonder if Taoist Xiandu is here? After a while, the Dipankara ancient Buddha's eyes lit up. The immortal world suddenly opened up in front of his eyes, and he had already been guided inside. Spirit flowers and mystical herbs were densely packed within, and divine birds and beasts were everywhere. Amidst the waterfall of orchids, there was an ordinary-looking palace. A plaque hung on the palace's door, with the words Tushita Palace written on it. Although it seemed ordinary, it was filled with Tao. The higher one's cultivation was, the more they would be able to comprehend boundless profundities from it. A child stood at the entrance of the palace and bowed towards the Dipankara ancient Buddha. Young master is waiting in the side hall. Ancient Buddha, please head over. All right, the Dipankara ancient Buddha nodded and descended the green lotus, following the child into the palace. When they arrived at a side hall, there was already someone sitting on a cushion. It was the grand, clear lineage bigwig. Great Taoist Xian Du. Both sides were familiar with each other since the ancient epoch, and they often came into contact. During the great calamity of this era, there was even some friction between them. However, the ancient Dipankara Buddha seemed to have completely forgotten about the great calamity. With a peaceful expression, he said with some nostalgia, "It's been a long time since I came to the Tushita Palace. How's the Elder Lord? Is fellow Taoist Xuandu all right?" He took a meditation cushion and placed it in front of the great Taoist Master Xiandu then. He sat opposite him. Great Taoist Master Xiandu did not mention much about what happened back then. He said calmly, "Of course you're fine. I'm useless. I'm just muddling along." Fellow Taoist Xiandu, you're too humble. The ancient Dipankara Buddha smiled and said, "You have a profound understanding of creation. You can stir up thunder in silence, and you can see the truth in the ordinary. You have received the teachings of the Lao Jun, and you have gone further and higher than many people. What you owe is just a few opportunities." A brocade box appeared in the perfect Buddhist light above his head. Ancient Buddha Randeng took out the brocade box and placed it on the ground. He pushed it to a place where great Taoist Master Xiandu could reach. "It just so happens that I've obtained something in the past few years. Perhaps I can lend you a hand." Great Taoist Master Xiandu looked at the brocade box, and his eyelids twitched slightly. He reached out to pick up the brocade box and opened it. The treasure light shone on great Taoist Master Xiandu's face. Great Taoist Master Xiandu's expression did not change, but he remained silent for the time being. A moment later, he took out a copper bell and shook it gently. A Tao child immediately entered the side hall. "Little Master, what instructions do you have?" "If Master doesn't have any instructions, go and bring the treasure stored in Pavilion A5 here," said great Taoist Master Xiandu. The Tao child responded and retreated. Great Taoist Master Xiandu closed the brocade box and placed it on the ground in front of him again. He did not look at it anymore. Ancient Buddha Randeng smiled and did not take back the brocade box. The side hall fell silent. After a while, the Tao child returned with a wooden box and handed it to great Taoist Master Xiandu. "Master doesn't have any instructions." Ancient Buddha Randeng smiled. "Thank you, Grand Supreme Elder." "Thank you, fellow Taoist Xiandu." Great Taoist Master Xiandu took the wooden box and handed it to Ancient Buddha Randeng. "I won't thank you, fellow Taoist Randeng. In that case, I'll take my leave now. Fellow Taoist Xiandu, I won't trouble you to send me off." Ancient Buddha Randeng's smile did not diminish. He put away the wooden box, left behind the brocade box, and stood up to leave. Just as he was about to leave the Tushita Palace, Ancient Buddha Randeng suddenly slowed down and asked, "Fellow Taoist Xiandu, is the person who went to the Jade Void Palace fellow Taoist Hudu?" Great Taoist Master Xiandu answered calmly, "That's right. The immortal vanquishing sword that fellow Taoist Hudu threw out and attracted our attention. Does it belong to her? Or does it come from the Tushita Palace? Ancient Buddha, Randang asked softly. Can you tell me? Great Taoist Master Xian, Du said. It came from this palace. Ancient Buddha, Randang, seemed to be deep in thought and did not ask further. He bade farewell and left. After leaving the Tushita Palace, he ascended the 12-petal green lotus and left. After Ancient Buddha, Randang left, great Taoist Master Xian Du quietly looked at the brocade box on the ground in the side hall. There was an additional person on the meditation cushion opposite him. It was a woman with a graceful and luxurious aura. The woman in luxurious clothes had already changed her appearance. Fan cloud crown, water gown, silk ribbon around the waist, hemp shoes on his feet. It was Yang Jian, Yang Erlang. You've met Luya? What was the result? Great Taoist Master Xian Du asked. Yang Jian answered, He's tempted. It should work. The great Master Xian Du nodded. He needs the kindling demonic spirit in the jade mirage glazed lamp and uses the devil of fire to complete his plan. Besides, even if he keeps the zither, he can't guarantee his safety. After all, he can't be sure that the body of the devil of fire of this generation is in the Astral Mountains star sea. In the primordial era, he became a demon. In the ancient era, he entered the Tao. In the medieval era, he became a Buddha. In the modern era, he became a devil. 4 Das in a row. That would be the end of him. I wonder what his final opportunity would be. Yang Jian turned his gaze to the brocade box on the ground. However, with this treasure, you won't be slower than him, right? Having been in the Tushita Palace for many years, Yang Jian had gradually come to understand this martial uncle, who had always kept a low profile. Just as ancient Buddha Randang had said, those who were good at fighting did not have outstanding achievements. The great Taoist Master Xian Du had seen the truth in an ordinary manner and had inherited the Grand Supreme Elder's teachings. Perhaps he could not compare to the great Emperor Ziwei in a battle, and he was inferior to the great sage, Heaven's equal, and the others. However, the great Taoist Master Xian Du's Tao techniques were profound. From a certain perspective, it was not easy. It's still too early to say. Great Taoist Master Xian Du also looked at the brocade box on the ground. Randang was earlier than us. When the ancient times and the Middle Ages intersected, he had already combined the lights from the Jade Mirage Palace and the 8 Scenic Palace. He had made preparations long ago. However, didn't we catch up to him? Who knows if we will follow in his footsteps and waste our time? I wonder what ancient Buddha Randang wants from the Tushita Palace. Yang Jian asked. Great Taoist Master Xian Du said slowly. He wants to exchange it for a relic left behind by Buddha Gautama Gautama. Chapter 1577. A relic of Buddha Sakyamuni. Yang Jian pondered. After Sun Wukong's golden body reappeared in the world, I remember that the Grand Supreme Elder once mentioned it. Is Sakyamuni of the Great Lane Temple of the Spiritual Mountain transformed from Taoist Zhuan-Ti, one of the 2 ancestors of the Western sect? Great Taoist Master Xian Du nodded. That's right. Although I had guessed it long ago, I only confirmed it then. Yang Jian looked enlightened. The person who wants the relic is not the ancient Buddha Dipankara, but Kong Xian? If I'm not wrong, that should be the case. Great Taoist Master Xian Du answered. Yang Jian asked, How many relics are there? Great Taoist Master Xian Du said, According to Grandmaster, there should be 5. I wonder how many Kong Xian has now. Yang Jian suddenly smiled. Ancient Buddha Dipankara can't be so kind as to help him gather them, right? However, it's very likely that he used this to exchange for Mahamayuri's help. Great Taoist Master Xian, Du said, slowly, between the demons and the Buddhists, Mahamayuri has always been neutral. However, 49 years ago, he suddenly stopped the demons. It's very likely because of this. As he spoke, great Taoist Master Xian Du looked at Yang Jin. Therefore, Mahamayuri might still attack in the battle of the immortal extermination ancient sword. Yang Jin smiled. During the ancient God-conferment battle, he was a zenith heaven, and I was a great void immortal. Ever since then, I have not had the chance to fight. If we really meet again, I would like to give it a try. I'm afraid that the Tao ancestors will not give me a chance and want to capture me first. No one can doubt your talent and strength. However, although Mahamayuri is not your nemesis, the five-color divine light is extremely domineering. Especially after he entered the Buddhist sect, his strength has increased to another level. You still have to be careful. Great Taoist Master Xian Du said, you created the 8-9 arcane art. No one else can provide you with experience. You can only rely on yourself. You have to be more cautious. Yang Jian nodded. I understand. Thank you for your advice. Uncle Master Xian Du, after saying that, he stood up and bade farewell. After watching him leave, great Taoist Master Xian Du continued to sit in the side hall. He looked at the brocade box on the ground and remained silent for a long time. After exiting the Tushita Palace, the ancient Dipankara Buddha did not directly return to the Western Pure Lands. Instead, he stopped in the boundless void's outskirts. After a while, someone appeared in the void. It was a Buddha filled with wisdom and compassion. After seeing the ancient Dipankara Buddha, he nodded, Ancient Buddha, it seems like you have succeeded. The Dipankara ancient Buddha nodded and smiled as well. It's a worthwhile trip. Next, we still have Bodhisattva Lai to instruct fellow Taoist Golden Light to help us pass a message to the Astro Mountain's starry seas. The deity of Golden Light, an ancient mutated species, the Golden Fur Ho, had entered Taoism to cultivate during the investiture of the gods era. He had also listened to the lectures of the prime Clear Lingbao Tianzuan. However, during the investiture of the gods, he was captured by the Jade Clear lineage's bigwig, the compassionate enlightened master, and became his mount. After the compassionate spiritual master joined Buddhism and became the Guanyin Bodhisattva, the Golden Light deity was also forced to join Buddhism. At this moment, the Buddha in front of the Dipankara ancient Buddha was the Jade Clear bigwig of the past, and the current Buddhist Bhante, the Guanyin Bodhisattva. Although he was referred to as a Bodhisattva, it was different from how Taoism addressed Buddhist Bhantes. In terms of cultivation, the Guanyin Bodhisattva was a Taoism heavenly lord. After joining Buddhism, he attained enlightenment and was a bona fide grand heavenly realm expert. In fact, ever since the Middle Era, he had been studying under the Western Pure Lands Amitabha Buddha. He was known as the righteous Dharma enlightened Buddha, or the Dharma nature Tathagata enlightened Buddha, or Amitabha Bodhisattva. He was one of the Amitabha Buddha's proudest disciples. The Guanyin Bodhisattva was his incarnation in the central blessed lands of Sa. After the Gautama Buddha transcended, the Maitreya Buddha changed the central blessed lands of Saha into the blessed lands of the White Lotus. After the Guanyin Bodhisattva and the other Buddhas left, he returned to the Western Pure Lands. After hearing the Dipankara ancient Buddha's words, the Guanyin Bodhisattva asked, Ancient Buddha, you mean to contact some fellow Taoists of the demon race without affecting the fight for the humanly essence stone fragment? That's right. The Dipankara ancient Buddha smiled and nodded. The Guanyin Bodhisattva revealed a compassionate expression and sighed, Is it for the 3 clear lineage? That's right, Taoist. The Dipankara ancient Buddha answered, While we, the heretics and the demon race, are not willing to give in to each other, it has given the 3 clear lineage an opportunity to reap the benefits. Especially now, 3 of the immortal exterminating, 4 swords have fallen into his hands. At a critical juncture, the entire situation might change if he is not careful. Hence, we have to do something. I believe the demon race would have the same opinion as well. The Dipankara ancient Buddha said, the indestructible Vajra Buddha and the others are in a hurry. There's no need to disturb them. Let's just continue. Hence, let's change our approach. Let's ask the Golden Light Immortal to help us talk to the demon race fellow Taoists who are still in the Astro Mountains' starry seas. Then he smiled. The 3 clear lineage has obtained the great sage equaling heaven's golden body, and he can even manifest his true body. However, it's only temporary. After snatching the immortal exterminating ancient sword, he needs to recuperate. This way, we can act without alerting the Buddha. The Guanyin Bodhisattva remained silent for a moment. Then she nodded and said, Ancient Buddha, please wait for a moment. I'll summon the Golden Light Immortal here. Thank you, Bodhisattva. The Dipankara ancient Buddha placed his palms together. Within the awakened sky cosmos, within the sky beyond skies on the broad Creed Mountain, Yen Zhaoge sat within the Pill Hall's purple divine pavilion, closing his eyes and cultivating. Suddenly, he felt something in his heart. It wasn't because of his own cultivation, but the feedback from the Pill Hall. Yen Zhaoge's mind seemed to have fused with the Pill Hall. His thoughts extended towards the vast awakened sky cosmos, coming in contact with the cosmos boundaries. He felt as if he was within the boundless void. His surroundings were vast and boundless, as if he was within a boundless ocean. Suddenly, Yen Zhaoge felt the surrounding seawater surging towards him. Towering waves rose, crashing towards him one after another. It was as if a storm had arisen in the faraway sea, resulting in a tsunami. As the waves surged, they started affecting him as well. Something's not right. Yen Zhaoge's heart sank. Within the boundless void's outskirts, such a large-scale fluctuation wasn't common. However, today wasn't the first time. It wasn't only limited to the awakened sky cosmos. The Tao universe, where the world beyond worlds was located, the immortal court, the blessed lands of the White Lotus, and other places might have experienced it before. However, according to Yen Zhaoge's knowledge, such situations should only originate from a single direction. From afar, it would gradually affect the awakened sky cosmos. Now, he could clearly feel that the tsunami-like spatial turbulence didn't originate from the same direction. Yen Zhaoge's consciousness retreated from the Pill Hall and started pondering. Such actions, is someone trying to find us? Chapter 1578. While they could not be considered to be surrounded by waves from all directions, Yen Zhaoge's intuition told him that the incoming tsunami was not of this scale. As time elapsed, the surging waves would only become more ferocious until they covered every direction and completely surrounded the awakened sky cosmos within a certain region. When that happened, all the tsunamis would be squeezed toward the center, and the awakened sky cosmos would have nowhere to hide. It would be exposed to the enemy's field of vision. The awakened sky cosmos wasn't stationary. Instead, it was constantly on the move. However, the tsunami that was stirring up in space-time was too violent and swift. Furthermore, there was more than one source. The source of the tsunami seemed to be mobile. Thus, they were able to constantly change their direction and search for the awakened sky cosmos. Of course, the void in the outer realm was too vast. Be it the awakened sky cosmos or the source of these tsunamis, they were both insignificant. If the other party wanted to encircle the awakened sky cosmos, they would need to at least have a starting point and a rough area. Only then would they be able to form an initial encirclement. Then they would be able to make use of the tsunamis to shake the void and find the exact location of the awakened sky cosmos. Of those who previously left, some are currently returning. Now they're being targeted. Yen Zhaoga's thoughts moved slightly, and he roughly understood the reason. Who left the awakened sky cosmos recently? Within the awakened sky cosmos, there were many people traveling in and out of the sky beyond skies, the roving jade heavens and the jade spring heavens. However, due to the orthodox Taoism's current situation and the unique nature of the awakened sky cosmos, anyone who wanted to enter or exit the awakened sky cosmos or the void's outskirts would have to report to the Pill Hall. This would make it easier for them to communicate with each other, and it would also make it easier for the Pill Hall to receive them when they returned to the awakened sky cosmos. There was a limit to the number of people who could leave the awakened sky cosmos and head to the outer realms. Hence, it wasn't difficult to record them down. Our sky beyond skies, green sky, mountains, grave thunder palaces, old palace, Lord Lu, roving jade heavens, scenery peaks, flowing heavens, old Mr. Long, jade spring heavens, cold star mountains, tranquil rock caves, rain sovereign, and Fangzhan mountains, mountain lord Xian emperor. Hearing Yen Zhaoga's question, Ahu immediately reported the name list. Among those who had left the awakened sky cosmos, there was Lu Jinggu of the sky beyond heaven, Long Xingqiuan of the roving jade heaven, Tong Xinlin of the jade spring heaven, and another newly advanced, leakless, true, immortal Emperor Xian. In the jade spring heaven, Mount Fangzhan and Mount Hanshan had always been on good terms. After Emperor Xian ascended to the celestial state and stabilized his state, he went out to travel again to look for opportunities. Tong Xinlin was asked by him to help. Find someone to inform them separately. Contact those who can be contacted as soon as possible. Yen Zhaoga instructed, ask them not to return to the awakened sky cosmos for now. I'll try to contact the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor and the Incongruence Divine Mother for now. Also, invite my mother and senior martial brother Su to the Purple Divine Pavilion. Who nodded in agreement and hurriedly left. After a while, Xue Chuqing and Su Fei arrived at the Purple Divine Pavilion. Zhaoga, what's wrong? There are people outside looking for us. Yen Zhaoga answered simply, the other party has come with great momentum this time and will not be easy to deal with. We have to deal with them carefully. I'm going to shift the Pill Hall on a large scale later on. Mother, help me hold the line. Senior apprentice brother Su, stay by my side. If there's any huge commotion, help me calm the situation in the sky beyond heavens. As he said this, dense mist arose from Yen Zhaoga's body. Within the Purple Divine Pavilion, streams of light intertwined like chains and landed on the profound sky purple golden furnace in front of Yen Zhaoga. The lid of the huge cauldron opened. Young master, I've managed to contact them. Who returned? The roving jade heavens, Mr. Dragon is about to return. After receiving the news, Mr. Dragon stopped and went somewhere else. He's waiting for the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor and the Incongruence Divine Mother to receive him. Yen Zhaoga said, that's good. He leaped up and entered the profound sky purple golden furnace, closing the lid. Senior apprentice brother Su, Pan, and the others need to rest. They can't manifest the golden body of the great sage to fight against others. Should I go out? Said Feng Yunsheng softly within Yen Zhaoga's right pupil. If the other party dares to make such a move, they must be prepared against our Taoism's heavenly immortals. Not only you, but even Senior Suwa, the Incongruence Divine Mother, and the others shouldn't make a move. Yen Zhaoga said, not targeting anyone below the grand heavenly realm is the Tao ancestors' tacit understanding. If you show yourselves, it'll be hard to predict. Moreover, even if the Amitabha Buddha and the East Sovereign don't make a move, the other party's preparations should be sufficient. He smiled. With such a huge movement, I wouldn't dare to come if I don't settle my worries first. Even if the two heretic sects are still fighting, I'm afraid that the Western Pure Lands and the demon race have reached a temporary agreement to suppress us first. As he spoke, Yen Zhaoge's soul left his body, leaving behind an empty shell. His mind had completely merged with the Pill Hall, the Awakened Sky Overseer, Awakened Sky Protector, broad benevolence God's image gradually manifested within the Awakened Sky cosmos. The speed and flexibility of the entire Awakened Sky cosmos spatial shifting increased by another level. Under Yen Zhaoge's control, the Awakened Sky cosmos was like a nimble fish. It traversed through the ocean waves and nimbly avoided the undercurrents and massive waves. Although he was avoiding the tsunami and walking in the opposite direction, Yen Zhaoge didn't let his guard down. An empty space didn't mean that there weren't any tsunamis. Instead, the source might be further away, and the tsunami hadn't managed to surround them yet. Many sources pushed the tsunamis towards the center. However, before they reached a certain range, there would still be some distance between the sources and the tsunamis. After all, the vast void was too vast. As such, a gap might be left behind, akin to the gap between two fishing nets. Yen Zhaoge and the others had to avoid the fishing nets. Before the fishing nets completely surrounded them, they had to leave first. After breaking out of the encirclement, the Awakened Sky cosmos quickly returned to normal. Not only was the previous state exhausting, but it also couldn't be sustained for long. At the same time, the Awakened Sky cosmos itself was like the source of the tsunami, which was easily noticed by others. Yen Zhaoge's soul returned to his body. He opened his eyes and exited the profound sky purple golden furnace. There are so many fishing nets. There should be at least 10 of them, or even more. The other party gathered their experts, and even had to be wary of our Taoism's heavenly immortals. They shouldn't be searching for people. Otherwise, they would have mobilized too many people, said Su Fei. If they're relying on some sort of treasure. Xue Chuqing fell into deep thought. Yeah, I thought of one as well. Yen Zhaoge stroked his chin. He and Xue Chuqing looked at each other and said in unison, the Dipankara ancient Buddha, the sea calming pearl. During the ancient investitures of the gods' era, Taoism's prime clear bigwig, Zhao Gongming, possessed 24 sea calming pearls. After that, Zhao Gongming encountered a tribulation and entered the heavenly court's divine palace. As for his sea calming pearl, it fell into the hands of the Dipankara ancient Buddha, who was known as the Dipankara Taoist. These 24 sea calming pearls could manifest the 24 heavens. They were extremely heavy and contained the profundities of space and time. They were perfect for trapping the Awakened Sky cosmos. Chapter 1579. Just like Tao Lord Luya's position in the demon race, the Dipankara ancient Buddha's position in the Western Pure Lands was similar. Most of the time, Amitabha Buddha was peaceful. The Western Pure Lands' external affairs were mostly handled by the Dipankara ancient Buddha. He was practically the second in command of the Western Pure Lands. Under normal circumstances, he rarely appeared, just like Tao Lord Luya. Even during the war between the Western Pure Lands and the demon race, he rarely participated in it. However, the top 3 bigwigs of the Orthodox Buddhism finally came out personally. His target wasn't the demon race or the blessed lands of the White Lotus, but the Awakened Sky cosmos. The sea calming pearl. What a great item. Yen Zhaoge smacked his lips. However, other than the Dipankara ancient Buddha and the sea calming pearl, there might be other experts working together. He, Xue Chuqing, and Xue Fei looked at each other. The same name appeared in their minds. Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles. Due to Yen Zhaoge and the others killing Fuluzi with the immortal extermination formation, the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles had always held a grudge against his son. Although the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles would be fighting against the Western Pure Lands Buddhas most of the time, he wouldn't let go of the chance to locate the awakened sky cosmos. In terms of spatial transformations, the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles' speed was unrivaled among the grand heavenly realm. With him and the Dipankara ancient Buddha working together, it was no wonder such a huge commotion could be caused. If not for the fact that Yen Zhaoge had always been cautious, having detected it at the first possible moment and reacted immediately, he would probably have been surrounded by the other party this time. As long as Senior Long and the others received the incongruence Divine Mother, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor, and the others, we won't have to worry anymore, said Su Fei, a grand heavenly realm expert, would appear out of nowhere. Without a doubt, the possibility of others intercepting them would be much lower. If they made contact with the awakened sky cosmos, they would be able to send Long Xingquan and the others back. Most importantly, it would be inconvenient for us to enter the awakened sky cosmos in the future. It'd be hard for us to head to the void's boundless outskirts. Otherwise, we might be targeted just like this time. Xue Chuqing sighed. The Dipankara ancient Buddha, the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles, and even more grand heavenly realm experts are keeping an eye on him. It's very difficult for someone who hasn't reached the grand heavenly realm to conceal their tracks when surrounded by enemies. Even among the grand heavenly realm experts, the Dipankara ancient Buddha and the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles were the cream of the crop. Such a top powerhouse's deterrence was not only reflected in a head-on battle, but also in all aspects. Bit by bit, it made people feel as if they were everywhere, giving people a suffocating pressure. In the past, they had always been at odds with each other. Therefore, when they clashed with each other, the orthodox Taoism's activities were much more relaxed. However, even though the blessed lands of the White Lotus and the Immortal Court were still locked in battle, the Western Pure Lands and the demon race had reached a certain degree of compromise. As such, the situation of the Taoist heirs became tense. The reason why Yen Zhaoge had forged the information regarding the Tai Nirvana Heavenly Lord and the humanly essence stone fragment in the past was to incite a war between the enemies of the two factions, so that his orthodox Taoism could have more time and space to develop. Back then, by a stroke of luck, they had really discovered the remains of the Tai Nirvana Lord and the humanly essence stone fragment. As a result, the two heretic sects had a great war and had been entangled with each other until now. To Yen Zhaoge and the others, this situation could not be any more ideal. However, the good days seemed to be coming to an end. With the immortal extermination formation diagram and the three ancient swords returning to orthodox Taoism, the immortal extermination formation might reappear within the world. Even Taoist Luya and the other demon race great sages felt pressured. As such, they accepted the Dipankara Buddha's suggestion to suppress Yen Zhaoge and the others first. How ironic! Xue Fei shook his head. Due to the war between the Immortal Court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus, the Western Pure Lands Indestructible Vajra Buddha is currently leading a group of Buddhist Bantis against a group of demon race great sages. Currently, the Indestructible Vajra Buddha and the others were still fighting, while the Dipankara Buddha, the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles, and the others had opened up a second battlefield at the same time. Then came a scene both absurd and serious. On the other side of the battlefield, the Buddhas of the Western Pure Land and the great sages of the demon race were locked in a fierce battle. On the other side of the battlefield, there was another group of Buddhist supremacies and great demons working together to surround and search for the Tao sect's heir. There's nothing wrong with the demon race's reaction. Yen Zhaoge said, "This is what a normal person would do." The immortal extermination formation might reappear in the world. Suo Mingzhang and Feng Yunsheng had successively transcended the origin heavenly tribulation, and the orthodox Taoism had gained two grand heavenly immortals. Yen Zhaoge created the fallen deity sword, and his cultivation was getting stronger and stronger. The three golden bodies of the great sage presided over the awakened sky cosmos. Every once in a while, the great sage equaling heaven's true body could be manifested. Moreover, the Ru-Yi golden cudgel was also in his hands. Within the past 100 years, the Taoism's three clear lineages' prowess had increased at an astounding speed. Such a situation would naturally attract the attention of other forces. To a certain extent, it wasn't impossible for the other forces to temporarily stop fighting and suppress the orthodox Taoism's lineage. However, the Dipankara Buddha and the others must have had other reasons for doing so. Yen Zhaoge chuckled. Let's not talk about whether the other Buddhas of the Western Pure Lands know about this. The Dipankara Buddha most likely knows about the immortal ending sword's whereabouts. What he's doing now is logical, and it's equivalent to helping the immeasurable heavenly Lord by concealing the truth of the immortal ending sword falling into the hands of the immortal court. This would further numb our senses and force us to walk right into their trap. Of course, they would be even happier if they managed to find us this time. Xue Chuqing sighed. Under such circumstances, we're even more eager to obtain the immortal ending sword to reappear the immortal exterminating formation. Still, how are we supposed to search for the sword 49 years later if the situation is still as tense as before? Su Fei frowned. By then, wouldn't we become even more suspicious if we let our guard down instead? Yen Zhaoge lightly rubbed his temples. If we don't know that the immortal ending sword is in the immortal court, we would have to do something to obtain an opportunity for ourselves in order to search for the sword. The others nodded silently. The other party only needed to go along with the flow. If Yen Zhaoge and the others didn't do anything and didn't try their best to obtain an opportunity, it would be equivalent to telling the other party that they already knew that the immortal ending sword was a trap. At the end of the day, everyone was just acting to see who was more realistic to Yen Zhaoge, and the others. The disadvantage was that if the other party realized that they had already seen through the trap, the immeasurable heavenly Lord could just give up on setting up this trap. To him, it would be a pity if he couldn't obtain the immortal exterminating formation. However, Yen Zhaoge and the others had even less hope of obtaining the immortal ending sword. Snatching something from a Tao ancestor head-on was undoubtedly harder than ascending to the heavens. Making use of the bait that the other party had set up was their only chance. Life is like a play, and it all depends on one's acting skills. It's time to compete in acting skills again. Yen Zhaoge slapped his head. Chapter 1580. In other words, we have to find a reason for them to relax their encirclement on the awakened sky cosmos. They might even neglect the threat of us gathering the immortal exterminating four swords to a certain extent. Xue Chuqing said, as for the heretics and the Western Pure Lands, they might not necessarily believe it. However, as long as the reason seems sufficient on the surface, they will just go with the flow and pretend to relax the pressure on us, hoping to lure the snake out of its hole. She frowned slightly. Such a reason isn't easy to find. How many existences beneath the Tao realm could rival the immortal exterminating formation? Not only were there few existences beneath the Tao realm that could rival the immortal exterminating formation. Xue Fei frowned as well. We can't let junior apprentice Sister Seacombe and the others take the risk, right? To the immeasurable heavenly Lord, the missing heavenly essence stone fragment was much more important than the humanly essence stone fragment he was fighting for against the future Buddha. If we really have no other choice, we can only sell Gao Han. Yen Zhaoge shrugged. Those who sell others will always sell themselves. I believe that the exalted solar luminary would understand. Xue Chuqing and Xue Fei looked at him, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. You should be more serious at this moment. All right. Even without the heavenly essence stone fragment, we still have some ideas, Yen Zhaoge said. Only we still have to ask the incongruence Divine Mother and the others to verify it. Xue Chuqing went into deep thought. Some prime clear lineages, relic. According to what you said, the Jade Illusory Palace should be in the sky. The roving Jade Palace should be in the same situation as well, right? Who can be so sure without actually entering it? Yen Zhaoge smiled. He stood up and walked out of the pill hall. He looked at the changing clouds in the faraway horizon. No matter what, we have to finish our act. Let's patiently pass through these 49 years and wait for the right time for them to release the bait. When that time comes, whether we break the hook and swallow the bait or get caught by them, or get caught in one fell swoop, it would all depend on our own abilities. Xue Fei and Xue Chuqing stood beside him and nodded. Within the astral mountains, starry seas, radiance shrouded the grand plainness heaven. A dot of golden-red fiery light rose from the propping mulberry divine tree and continued ascending. It flew towards the ethereal spirit palace that seemed to be at an infinitely high place within the grand plainness heaven's void. In Emperor Dong's palace, in the field of chestnut eastern monarch Tai's residence was here. The golden flame flew into the field of chestnut and manifested the appearance of immortal Luya. He came to the outside of Emperor Dong's palace, but did not enter. Instead, he bowed to the ancient and majestic palace and said, "Your Majesty, please tell me where the Tushita Palace is." No one in the palace answered. Only the sound of a bell rang out. Then a gust of wind appeared beneath Tao Lord Luya's feet, lifting him up and sending him out of the plains of chestnut, out of the grand essence heaven, out of the astral mountains starry sea, and into the endless void outside the domain. Tao Lord Luya's body flashed through the endless void of the outlands. He seemed to have lost all sense of time as he ascended into an immortal realm. In the fairyland, there was a palace with a simple and ordinary appearance. It was the Tushita Palace. The Taoist child stood at the entrance of the hall and bowed towards Taoist Luya. Taoist Luya has come from afar. Your disciple pays his respects. Are fellow Taoists Xiandu and Hoda present? Tao Lord Luya asked. Little old master is in seclusion to refine elixirs. Goddess Hutu is cultivating in the meditation room. She once said that if Tao Lord comes to visit, you can go see her. With that said, the Taoist child led the way. Tao Lord Luya entered the Tushita Palace and followed the Taoist child to a meditation room. In the room, a woman dressed in luxurious clothes sat on a bed. When she saw Tao Lord Luya enter, she stood up and nodded. "You're here, Tao Lord." Right beside her, there was an ancient glazed lamp. The speck of light was mysterious and unfathomable, revealing its miraculous nature. Tao Lord Luya entered the meditation room and came to the lamp. He said, "Fellow Taoist Hutu, please, I'm here to fulfill my promise." With that said, a zither appeared in his hand. The zither was filled with an ancient aura. When the woman in luxurious clothes looked at it, it was as though she was experiencing the changes of the heavenly Tao. However, the zither only had 4 strings left. The rest were broken. The woman in luxurious clothes was not surprised. She already knew that it was a broken zither. "The lamp is here. Please help yourself. You can take the fire seed devil spirit away. However, this lamp needs to be left in the Tushita Palace." "Please forgive me, Tao Lord," said the woman in luxurious clothes. "It's fine. I understand." Tao Lord Luya turned to look at the lamp flame. In his eyes, there seemed to be flames. They were born from the Khanate world. They were extremely mysterious, like the ancestor of all flames. The illusory jade glass lamp's flame was not affected. It continued to dance on its own. However, inside the lamp, there seemed to be some strange sparks flying out and dancing in the lamp flame. The sparks were restrained by the lamp and could not escape. However, Dowlord Lu Ya's connately fire essence flew out of his eyes and landed on the illusory jade glass lamp's light. The perfect lamp seemed to open up a passage. The sparks inside flew out. Then, Dowlord Lu Ya's connately fire swept the sparks back into his eyes. The lamp returned to normal. The ancient lamp was still burning quietly in the room, illuminating the entire room. In that case, I'll take my leave. Fellow Taoist Hutu, please greet the Grand Supreme Elder, and fellow Taoist Xian, do on my behalf, said Dowlord Lu Ya with a smile. The woman in luxurious clothes said, Take care, Dowlord. I won't send you off. No one would have to worry about the other party cheating in the transaction in the Tushita Palace. The Grand Supreme Elder was indeed used to staying quiet and doing nothing, but his existence was enough to suppress the tricks of the ghosts. After watching Dowlord Lu Ya leave, the woman in luxurious clothes had a calm expression. She stroked the 4 strings of the broken zither with her fingers. Great Taoist Master Xian Du appeared silently and said, Wait for the final opportunity. The woman's appearance changed, and she returned to Yang Jian's original appearance. She nodded and said, That's right. On the other side, Dowlord Lu Ya left the Tushita Palace and returned to the Astro Mountains' starry sea. He entered the Grand Essence Heaven and landed on the Fusang Divine Tree, where he lived. He took out a red gourd and pulled out the stopper. Then the connately fire in his eyes passed through the sparks and sealed them into the gourd. Yang Wuzi, Dowlord Lu Ya called out softly. A bright sun appeared from afar and landed on the Fusang Divine Tree. It retracted the sunlight and turned into a 3-legged crow. It came in front of Dowlord Lu Ya and said respectfully, Patriarch, take this and pay attention to the Astro Mountains' starry sea. See if anyone can touch it, said Dowlord Lu Ya as he handed the red gourd to the 3-legged crow. After the crow took the red gourd, it replied, Don't worry, Patriarch. I will definitely investigate carefully. Don't be anxious if there's nothing for the time being. Just be careful in the future, instructed Dowlord Lu Ya. Yes, Patriarch. The 3-legged crow paused for a moment before saying softly, Patriarch, that zither. Chapter 1581. Dongjun Yang Wuzi concealed his demonic power in front of Dowlord Lu Ya. Other than his 3 legs, he looked like an ordinary crow. However, he was a demon race great sage, an existence equivalent to a Taoism heavenly lord. The Golden Crow race was created by goddess Nuwa in the primordial era by imitating Lu Ya's demonic form. After that, the Golden Crow race recognized Dowlord Lu Ya as their ancestor. Dowlord Lu Ya did not reject it, and the relationship between the two became even closer. Dongjun Yang Wuzi was the only demon race great sage in the race, and the strongest expert in the race. However, he did not take up the position of the clan leader, nor did he stay in the Golden Crow race's ancestral land. Instead, he stayed by Dowlord Lu Ya's side, acting like a disciple and a trusted aide. Hence, he knew much more than others. He did not treat Dowlord Lu Ya as an outsider, and Dowlord Lu Ya did not hide many things from him. The zither naturally belongs to the Tushita Palace. Dowlord Lu Ya said, or rather, it belongs to the 3 clear lineage. Yang Wuzi showed a look of pity. Dowlord Lu Ya smiled. There are many things that can only be gained by giving up. It can't be helped. With the zither, the orthodox Taoism will have a much easier time when the final sword of the immortal extermination 4 swords is born. Yang Wuzi was a little worried. They have the complete immortal extermination formation. Wouldn't it be even harder to deal with the 4 swords? Dowlord Lu Ya's lips curled up, and he stroked his beard. It's not that simple. Although I can't be sure if I'm not wrong, the final immortal extermination ancient sword is either in the immortal court, the western pure lands, or the 9 underworlds. Oh, Yang Wuzi was surprised. According to Ho Tu, the Orthodox Taoism already knows the approximate location of the immortal extermination ancient sword. Tao Lord Luya smiled, but they aren't going there to retrieve it. What do you think is the reason? It's because the sword already has an owner, and it might even be a Tao realm expert. Our Astro Mountains starry seas doesn't have it, and the central blessed lands of Saha doesn't have it either. It's most likely to be in the Immortal Court or the Western Pure Lands. Tao Lord Luya laughed. The Orthodox Taoism wants to acquire the final sword. Even if the zither goes to them, it will still be used against our enemies. No wonder the Immortal Court and the Western Pure Lands didn't put in any effort to search for the immortal extermination ancient sword. So they already had a plan in mind. Yang Wuzi said thoughtfully, "Did the Earth Queen intentionally leak the news to you?" "That's natural. Let's get involved as well. The more chaotic the situation is, the more chances the Tao sect will have." Tao Lord Luya said, "Otherwise, the enemy will have set up a trap for them to jump into. Their chances of success will be very slim, unless the old lord is willing to intervene." At this point, Tao Lord Luya chuckled and said, "Both parties have their wishful thinking. It's just that it's hard to say who will benefit in the end. The immortal extermination formation is no small matter. Our Astro Mountains starry seas naturally needs it." He turned to Yang Wuzi and said, "It's not the right time to deal with the 4 immortal slaying swords. Before that, let's deal with the matter at hand." Yang Wuzi bowed his head. "Yes, ancestor." He kept the red gourd and flew away from the propping mulberry tree. Speaking of which, how did the Orthodox Taoism see through the enemy's plan and know that the immortal ending sword already had an owner? Tao Lord Luya sat in a lotus position on the tree trunk. The smile on his face disappeared, and a contemplative expression appeared on his face. Also, the immortal extermination sword that Ho Tu tossed out in order to enter the Jade Illusory Palace. Has it always been stored in the Tushita Palace? There's news from the Tushita Palace. Within the awakened sky cosmos, within the broad Creed Mountains Pill Hall, Yen Zhaoge let out a long sigh and said to Yen Di, Shui Chuqing, Su Fei, and the others, "The fortune that I wanted to exchange for the Jade Illusory glazed lamp has been successfully obtained." He explained, "Although the situation is still very difficult for us to succeed, it's still much more hopeful now." Everyone revealed a joyful expression when they heard it. "Let's do our best and wait for the time to come," said Yen Di slowly. Under the undercurrent, everyone was surging. The soul-stirring details would usually far surpass what most people could see on the surface. Many battles might already have their final outcome before they even started on the surface. The true battle had begun much earlier than what the public had expected. Only the various parties with ulterior motives were still unable to determine who would emerge as the final victor. Everyone could only accumulate their strength in secret and scheme to obtain more chips to increase their chances of victory. For Yen Zhaoge and the Taoism lineage that were developing in the awakened sky cosmos, the following days weren't going to be as good as before. The Dipankara ancient Buddha personally led the rock of 10,000 cloudy miles and other demon race bigwigs to encircle the awakened sky cosmos in order to prevent their whereabouts from being exposed. Yen Zhaoge and the others greatly reduced the number of people entering and exiting the void's outskirts. This was to prevent the awakened sky cosmos from being targeted by one or a few of them. Then, they would use the sea calming pearl to surround them. Due to this reason, Yen Zhaoge and the others found it harder to obtain information about the outside world. As such, The unique treasures produced by the void's outskirts became more precious to the Taoism martial art practitioners within the awakened sky cosmos. The awakened sky cosmos produced many treasures and resources to begin with. As such, there weren't any major problems. It wouldn't be like the Jade Spring world, which was in dire straits. However, some resources were unique to the void's boundless outskirts. It would be much more difficult for the awakened sky cosmos to obtain them. If there was an extremely important treasure within, then for the time being, he could only wait patiently. Such situations were rare, and the negative effects weren't that great. What Yan Zhaoge and the other higher-ups were more concerned about was the fact that the Taoism lineage's revival momentum seemed to have been interrupted in the past few decades. The so-called momentum seemed invisible and intangible. However, it truly existed. For Gao Qingxian, Yu Jinbei, Long Xingquan, and the others of the older generation, it didn't matter much. They had experienced much darker and more difficult times in the past. However, for the younger generation, especially those who were born after the creation of the awakened sky cosmos, it was easy for them to feel worried about the situation that seemed to have suddenly turned against them. Under Yan Zhaoge and the others' guidance, the entire awakened sky cosmos was still developing. In fact, it was even accelerating. Only the acceleration wasn't as ferocious as before. Yan Zhaoge and the others were calm, neither arrogant nor rash. They silently cultivated and waited for the right opportunity. They were temporarily dormant in order to erupt with more power. The next stage would be akin to a carp leaping through the dragon's gate. As such, Yan Zhaoge and the awakened sky cosmos spent their time battling against the Dipankara ancient Buddha and the other bigwigs. Time flew by in a blink of an eye. Another 7 by 7, 49 years passed. Chapter 1582. 49 years passed, and there were many changes both inside and outside of the awakened sky cosmos. While it was not a secret amongst the peak higher echelon experts that Yan Zhaoge had spent searching for the swords, most people naturally did not know about it. In the sky beyond heaven, people lived and multiplied. Martial artists focused on cultivation and were more concerned about the things around them. At this moment, on Broad Creed Mountain, a multicolored light suddenly rose from the back mountain, streams of immortal chi circulating. Outside one of the abodes stood a valiant man who looked to be in his 30s or 40s. His hair was slightly stained with frost, and his features were extremely handsome. Just by standing there, he had an eye-catching presence, as if he was the center of the world. Even the multicolored light in the cave next to the man didn't seem as dazzling in front of him. However, the man looked rather happy at this moment. His eyes were filled with joy as he bowed solemnly towards the cave abode. "Master, congratulations on successfully passing the immortal mortal tribulation, pushing open the immortal door, and attaining the leakless body." There were a few people standing behind the man. Their cultivation levels varied, and the person in the lead was an extremely tall and beautiful woman. The few of them were also overjoyed. They bowed solemnly towards the cave abode. "Congratulations, Master, for successfully passing the immortal mortal tribulation, pushing open the door of immortality, and attaining the leakless body." The door of the cave residence was pushed open, and a skinny old man walked out. He smiled and said, "Sorry to keep you waiting." It was precisely Broad Creed Mountain's former chief, Yuan Zhengfeng. Looking at that valiant man, he sighed emotionally. "Yan Di, how can a lofty heavenly monarch act as a protector for a martial saint's tribulation? You and I both know that you can only rely on yourself during the immortal mortal tribulation. Others can't help you, so there's no need for you to wait here." A faint smile appeared on Yendi's face. It is only natural for a disciple to stand guard for his master. Yuan Zhengfeng, wasn't a pretentious person either. He laughed and shook his head. It's enough that you have the heart. Why bother with etiquette? The younger generation is the backbone of our sect, and even the outland. Don't lose the bigger picture because of a small gain. Counting the days, the 49-year period should be up soon, right? The 49-year period is about to come. Yen Di first answered Yuan Zhengfeng's question before saying, shedding mortality and becoming an immortal will always be different. This disciple will definitely come this time. Yuan Zhengfeng waved his hand and said with a smile, the student surpasses the master, carrying on the past and opening up the future. To be able to see today's flourishing scene, this old man is satisfied. For me to be able to shed my mortal body and become an immortal, it can be said that it is all thanks to you young people. It is all thanks to the current environment of the sky beyond heavens and the strength of our sect. This old man cannot boast about himself. Yen Di smiled. Master, with your current cultivation base and longevity, you are still very young. It would not be wrong to say that you are a youth. You are not an old man, much less an old man. If I'm used to it, it means that my mental state has aged. Yuan Zhengfeng laughed self-deprecatingly. If it wasn't for the fact that I was spurred on by all of you, I would only be passing my days, no matter how much longer I have. The tall woman by Yen Di's side now spoke. Master, it is precisely because your heart has yet to dissipate that you are able to improve unceasingly now. You can look forward to even greater accomplishments in the future. This woman was naturally Yen Di's senior apprentice sister, Yuan Zhengfeng's personal disciple, Fu Enshu, beside Yen Di and her stood Feng Qi and the others. Although their cultivation bases varied, they were all Yuan Zhengfeng's personal disciples. Today, they were here to welcome their master and congratulate him. Objectively speaking, Yuan Zhengfeng's talent in martial arts was very high. If he had grown up in the current environment of the broad Creed Mountain, his achievements would have been even more eye-catching. Back then, the environment and experiences of the Eight Extremities world had dragged Yuan Zhengfeng down to a certain extent. He might not have been able to reach the limits of his own potential. Fortunately, he still managed to catch up with the great development of the sky beyond heavens and the broad Creed Mountain. Cultivating wholeheartedly without any distractions, Yuan Zhengfeng still managed to ascend to a height that many people might not be able to reach in their entire lives. Therefore, although Yuan Zhengfeng's long-lost sharpness and drive arose in his heart, he did not feel too much pity for his life, nor did he have any thoughts of blaming others. Having experienced the darkest times of the broad Creed Mountain in the Eight Extremities world, his state of mind was very peaceful. He was already much luckier than his master Zhan Shilo, senior apprentice uncle Zhan Donga, and the others. He was also luckier than many people of the same generation. Perhaps I can still continue to advance. However, it's merely the icing on the cake for the revival of our Taoism. Yuan Zhengfeng smiled slightly. The future is ultimately created by all of you being able to witness the Golden Age and contribute to it. This old man is very comforted. Feng Qi said, the Golden Age is gradually getting stronger. Our Taoism's experts have been continuously emerging all these years. Speaking of immortal realm experts, other than you who pushed open the immortal door, not long ago, the ingenious Flying Peaks Red Lotus Cliffs Brocade Emperor had successfully duo cheese fused aura past the pure profound tribulation and ascended to the tranquil profound immortal realm. Is that so? Yuan Zhengfeng nodded repeatedly. That's truly a joyous occasion. Before meeting Yang Jian, who was residing in the Tishita Palace, Yen Zhaoge, Fu Yunqi, and Chao Jie had studied the grand, clear, direct lineage and recreated the art of severing one's emotions and parasitizing. With this art, the brocade emperor Fu Yunqi's future path was finally clear and smooth again. After these years of hard work, he had successfully created 2 clones, which were entrusted with his 2 daughters' emotions. Forgetting his emotions wasn't heartless, and he returned to the righteous path. Compared to the black-clothed brocade emperor's attempt to borrow the grand simplicity splendor cloud, this was a better method. After solving all the problems in the true immortal realm, Fu Yunqi finally attempted the pure profound tribulation and successfully passed the tribulation. With the duo cheese fused aura, he ascended to the profound immortal realm, and there was another sovereign in the sky beyond skies. "Oh, it seems like I have to go to the Red Lotus Cliff," Yuan Zhengfeng said. Fu Enshu smiled slightly. "There's no hurry. Perhaps it's the brocade emperor's turn to come to our place." Generally speaking, such a joyous occasion would be kept a secret. If it was announced to the whole world, the other forces that had no grudges against each other would usually send people to congratulate them. If it was a coincidence that someone from 2 forces ascended to the immortal realm at the same time, they would send people to congratulate each other, and the other forces would send 2 groups of people to attend the ceremony. However, if one of the forces had an expert of a higher level, such as the brocade emperor, according to the tacit etiquette, the broad Creed Mountains' immortal emperor Yuan Zhengfeng and the other forces' representatives would go to the Red Lotus Cliff together. While Yuan Zhengfeng congratulated Fu Yunqi, he would also receive the gifts from others. Such a situation was extremely rare, but it wasn't unprecedented. So, everyone just had to follow the rules. However, Fu Enshu's words made Yuan Zhengfeng slightly stunned. Although the broad Creed Mountain's current status and power far surpassed the Red Lotus Cliff, the broad Creed Mountain style in the sky beyond skies wasn't domineering. This kind of thing wouldn't break the established rules. There was only one possibility for Fu Yunqi and the Red Lotus Cliff to go to the broad Creed Mountain instead. In the broad Creed Mountain, there was an expert of a higher level than the profound immortal realm. Could it be Zhaoge? Yuan Zhengfeng thought for a while and revealed a joyful expression. At this moment, before he finished his sentence, 5 colored lights shot up to the sky from another cave manor in the back mountain of the broad Creed Mountain. Roiling rainbow lights filled the entire heaven and earth, continuously spreading towards the surroundings. As the wind and clouds surged, it seemed to have enveloped the entire sky beyond skies, and was even sweeping outwards, recommending the urban god, Shinshu, frowny face bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1583. It wasn't just the entire heavens beyond world. The multicolored radiance even rushed out of the boundaries and filled the void of the awakened sky cosmos. At this moment, the 8 extremities world, the vast ocean world, and many other lower realms that were connected to the sky beyond heaven all shook as if a great change had occurred in the heavens and the earth. The people of the lower realms didn't know how to react, but the people of the sky beyond skies, after a short moment of shock, looked at the source of the lights. After recognizing that it was the direction of the broad Creed Mountain, they immediately understood. Within the broad Creed Mountain range, on the Jade Capital Crag, a rare smile appeared on the sword sovereign Yu Jinbei's usually stern face. He cupped his hands towards the direction of the broad Creed Mountain Range's main peak. His disciples, led by Wang Pu, who had ascended to the human exalt realm a few years ago, all had solemn expressions on their faces as they bowed in the direction of broad Creed Mountain's main peak. While they usually referred to Yan Zhaoge as senior apprentice brother, at this special moment, Wang Pu, Qiu Jiahai, and the others all had solemn expressions on their faces as they spoke in unison. "Congratulations, Your Majesty, for ascending to the grand virtual immortal realm and achieving the 5 Qis unification." On Golden Court Mountain, Chao Jie was in the lead, and behind him stood Tang Yonghao, Long Hanhua, Mu Jun, the southeastern sword mistress, and the others. They looked at the rainbow clouds in the sky. Compared to the other people in the realm beyond heavens, their emotions were more complicated. As people who had come into contact with Yin Zhaoge and Broad Creed Mountain relatively early on, they could virtually be said to have personally witnessed the rise of Yin Zhaoge and Broad Creed Mountain, witnessed the birth of a legend, from nothing to something. At this moment, atop the peak of Golden Court Mountain, everyone had their swords in hand as they bowed in the direction of Broad Creed Mountain's main peak with solemn expressions on their faces. Congratulations, Your Majesty, for ascending to the grand virtual immortal realm and achieving the 5 Qis unification. In the southern continent of Heavens Beyond, on the newly built Wudong Slope, the current sect leader, Phoenix Cry's southern border, Mao Yuansheng, also looked towards the northern horizon with a slightly frightened expression. At this moment, the multicolored light filled the world, and it was almost impossible to tell which direction to go. However, Mao Yuansheng could naturally recognize the source of the glow. It came from the direction of the main peak of the Broad Creed Mountain Range, in the sky beyond skies. Considering the current number of experts of Broad Creed Mountain, it did not need to be said for the person who could cause such a disturbance. He was the person who had single-handedly caused the calamity of Wudong Slope back then. That person who had single-handedly brought Broad Creed Mountain to its current position. To a certain extent, it could also be said that he was a person who had made great contributions to the development of the Heaven upon Heavens and the revitalization of the Tao sect. Due to the overall improvement of the environment and the rising tide, even Wudong Slope, which had experienced a great calamity, quickly recovered its vitality. In fact, it even faintly showed an aura that surpassed that of the past. The entanglement of gratitude and grudges was truly difficult to distinguish. However, there was no doubt that the two of them were no longer on the same level. Although there was an old saying that flowers do not bloom for 100 days, the current strong side might be buried by time in 1,000, 10,000, or even 100,000 years. But now, Mao Yuansheng could only sigh and lower his head. Congratulations, Your Majesty, for ascending to the grand virtual immortal realm and achieving the 5 Qis unification. After experiencing the joy of their old chief Yuan Zhengfeng ascending to immortality, Broad Creed Mountain's disciples immediately received an even greater surprise. Gazing at the dazzling light that filled the sky, that shook one's soul, everyone's mind went blank. When they recovered from their shock, regardless of whether they were men or women, young or old, all of them cheered in unison. And at this time, from another direction, a vast purple aura descended. The purple aura resembled a sea of clouds. Yet, illuminated by the 5-colored light, the purple color faded as the sea of clouds seemed to turn multicolored. As the cloud chi dispersed, a few figures were revealed. Their leader was handsome and handsome. It was none other than the former Brocade Emperor, the current Brocade Emperor Fu Yunqi. Behind him followed Fu Ting, Meng Wan, He Shixing, and the others. The current Red Lotus Cliff was extraordinary as well. He Shixing had pushed open the door to immortality slightly earlier than Yuan Zhengfeng, achieving the leakless true immortal stage. Even earlier than him, the grand Red Lotus Fu Ting had triumphantly ascended to the immortal realm. The world sighed in admiration as Meng Wan, known as the twin beauties of Red Lotus Cliff alongside Fu Ting, had long since reached the human exalt stage. Fu Yunqi's 2 daughters were both beautiful and talented, causing many suitors to nearly stomp down Ingenious Flying Peak by a few feet. Still, led by Fu Yunqi at this moment, those of Red Lotus Cliff descended from the clouds, solemn expressions on their faces, as they bowed towards Broad Creed Mountain that was enveloped by the multicolored light. Congratulations to the Yen Emperor for ascending to the grand virtual immortal realm and achieving the 5 Qis unification. In the back mountain of Broad Creed Mountain, the door of a cave manor opened, and Yan Zhaoge strode out from within. He first bowed towards Yan Di, Yuan Zhengfeng, and the others who came from afar. At this special moment, Yan Di, Yuan Zhengfeng, and the others all bowed to Yan Zhaoge in a solemn and joyous manner. Then, those of Broad Creed Mountain welcomed Fu Yunqi, Fu Ting, and Meng Wan into the door. Congratulations to Senior Fu for successfully passing the pure profound tribulation, said Yan Zhaoge with a smile. Fu Yunqi said, thanks to Taoist Yan and Taoist Chao's help. Otherwise, I don't know how much time I would have wasted. No need to be so polite, Senior Fu, Yan Zhaoge said. Our orthodox Taoism, especially the grand, clear, direct lineage, has one more profound immortal. It's a joyous occasion. Fu Yunqi said, I've always been impatient. I was like that in the past, and I'm still like that now. I'm not as steady as Taoist Gao of the roving jade heavens. I still have to explore my way forward, and I dare not be careless. On the other hand, Taoist Yan and your father have accumulated a lot of experience. When the conditions are right, success will follow, and your cultivation realm will improve by leaps and bounds. It's truly amazing. Previously, in the entire awakened sky cosmos, including the sky beyond skies, roving jade heavens and jade spring heavens, the ones closest to the profound immortal realm were Fu Yunqi and the roving jade heavens Gao Shuebua and Long Xueji. Long Xueji was extremely talented in swordsmanship, and his combat prowess was unparalleled among those in the same realm. However, his cultivation speed wasn't as fast as Yan Di, Nie Jingxin, Yu Yi, and Chen Qianhua. Especially since he was a sword cultivator, it wasn't easy for him to improve. Although he was currently at the true immortal peak stage, he still needed to nurture his cultivation to reach the profound immortal realm. As for Gao Shuebua, he had nurtured his sword for thousands of years when he was in the martial Saint Exalt realm and accumulated a lot of experience. Once he unsheathed his edge, he immediately crossed the immortal mortal tribulation and pushed open the immortal door, achieving the leakless true immortal realm. At the same time, due to the sheath edge and nurture sword, he was much closer to the profound immortal realm than the Tranquil Emperor, Grand Emperor, Fu Yunqi, and Long Xueji. However, now that the true immortal realm Gao Shuebua was in the sheath edge and nurture sword, he wasn't in a hurry to challenge the pure profound tribulation. As such, he lagged behind Fu Yunqi. As for Gao Shuebua and Long Xueji's father, Long Xingquan, he displayed his brilliance in the past. Previously, he had successfully passed the profound origin tribulation, achieved the 5 Qis unification, and achieved the grand virtual immortal realm. This proved why he could sweep across the roving jade heavens in the past, and was only defeated by Gao Qingxian. After Long Xingquan and Yan Di, Yan Zhaoge had also succeeded in achieving the 5 Qis unification, becoming the third Taoism heavenly monarch born in the sky beyond skies in the past few decades. Compared to Gao Qingxian and Long Xingquan, Yan Zhaoge and his father's improvement speed was even more shocking and miraculous. Chapter 1584 equals VA6. G passing the profound origin tribulation, 5 Qis unification, and attaining the grand virtual realm naturally became the biggest event of the sky beyond skies. Other than the Red Lotus Cliffs group, led by Fu Yunqi, the other forces naturally gathered at the Broad Creed Mountain to congratulate Yan Zhaoge. When the roving Jade Heavens and Jade Spring Heavens received the news, many people came to congratulate him. Within Yan Zhaoge's pupils, a voice resounded, congratulating him. Congratulations to the Yan Emperor for attaining the grand virtual immortal realm and attaining the 5 Qis unification, said Feng Yunshen with a smile. Yan Zhaoge's thoughts moved, and he sent a sound transmission to her, smiling, "It's fine if others call me by my title, but I can't accept it if you do. According to the rules, I should be the one calling you the Heavenly Lord. Feng Yunqing's voice was gentle. She smiled and said, before we reached the Martial Saint realm, I had already addressed you like that. According to the unspoken agreement from before the Great Calamity, only true immortals and profound immortals could be called sovereigns. Those who disobeyed the rules might be attacked by the masses. Even the true sovereigns might find trouble with them. In the past, when Yan Zhaoge was touring the floating life world, he had the title of Yan Emperor in the floating life world. After the Great Calamity, when civilization was being rebuilt, it was a special product of the lower realms. Normally, even if those of a higher realm knew about it, they would only treat it as a joke. They wouldn't take it seriously like before the Great Calamity. However, the Yan Emperor had lived up to his name for many years. Today, Yan Zhaoge even surpassed the profound immortal realm and became a grand virtual immortal, ascending to the heavenly monarch realm. Looking back, hundreds of years had passed. To ordinary people, it might be a long time. However, to martial art practitioners, it was so fast that it was shocking. Still, in the floating life world at that time, when everyone's cultivation bases had yet to even reach the Martial Saint realm, Feng Yunqing already had a strong feeling that the so-called title of Yan Sovereign would ultimately be Yan Zhaoge's. From the looks of it, it was just as she had expected. The Yan Emperor was just the starting point. You're faster than me, Yan Zhaoge said with a smile. I was fortunate enough to encounter a great calamity in the future. Feng Yunqing's tone was very calm, as if the person who might encounter a calamity wasn't her. Yan Zhaoge murmured, the times create the hero, and the hero creates the times. How can it be so clear? Who can say that they do not rely on any fortuitous encounters or luck at all? As for the future, it's still uncertain. I'm just doing my best and feeling at ease. Then let's focus on the current situation and do our best, Feng Yunqing said. Yan Zhaoge smiled. That's right. After passing through this trial of the carp leaping over the Dragon Gate, it would be a brand new world, a brand new era. Whether or not our orthodox Taoism can change the heavens and the earth after so many years of accumulation following the Great Calamity will depend on this trial, the final step of our journey of 10,000 kilometers. The aftermath of the ceremony came to an end, but some guests did not leave. For example, Gao Qingxian and Long Xingquan, the top-notch experts of the awakened sky cosmos, were currently gathered together to plan for the upcoming battle. At almost the same time, outside the awakened sky cosmos, a group of Buddhist experts and demon race great sages started to encircle the orthodox Taoism once again. Everyone had their eyes on the 49-year time limit. Throughout these years, the Dipankara ancient Buddha and the others had been targeting the awakened sky cosmos. The awakened sky cosmoses people kept a low profile, and they reduced their movements outside the cosmos. As a result, the difficulty of their enemies' encirclement had also increased. However, now that the 49-year time limit was up, the Dipankara ancient Buddha and the others naturally cooperated and intensified their encirclement and suppression against the orthodox Taoism. They wanted to stop Yan Zhaoge and the others from searching for the final ancient sword. On the other hand, the immortal court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus were constantly fighting against each other. Once again, a 100-year war ensued. Just as Yan Zhaoge finished his seclusion, he received a huge gift from the Dipankara ancient Buddha and the rock of 10,000 cloudy miles. The 24 sea calming pearls transformed into 24 heavens, which almost squeezed the awakened sky cosmos in the middle. However, under Yan Zhaoge's control, the pill hall successfully escaped from the enemy's encirclement and left. Senior apprentice brother Su, you've worked hard. Yan Zhaoge looked at the returning Su Fei and said with a smile, the Dipankara ancient Buddha, and the others were able to find an opportunity to encircle the awakened sky cosmos because of Su Fei's recent trip. However, this was the result of Yan Zhaoga's discussion with everyone before he went into seclusion. As the 49-year time limit was nearing its end, the orthodox Taoism should be thinking of making a move. If they didn't take any risks, it would only attract suspicion. On the other hand, Yan Zhaoga and the others needed to establish some connections and communications with the outside world to prepare for their next move. "It's prepared," said Su Fei. Yan Zhaoga nodded. "Let us begin, then." He first handed over the control of the pill hall and the profound sky-purple golden furnace to his mother, Xue Chuqing. After he left the awakened sky cosmos, Xue Chuqing could still control the pill hall to avoid the Dipankara ancient Buddha and the others' encirclement. Xue Chuqing had ascended to the immortal realm for many years now. Her cultivation was stable, and her attainments in formations were profound. Her familiarity with the pill hall was only inferior to Yan Zhaoga's. With her controlling it, Yan Zhaoga didn't need to worry about it anymore. After that, Yan Zhaoga wasn't in a rush. He used the Taoist Way Heavenly Lord's cave manor as a clue to locate the immortal ending sword. He, Yan Di, Su Fei, Gao Qingxian, and the others left the sky beyond skies and exited the awakened sky cosmos. Everyone split up. Feng, Yinsheng, also temporarily left Yan Zhaoga's sight. Like the other Taoism heavenly immortals, she merged with the void and disappeared. After Yan Zhaoga and the others bid farewell, they too disappeared into the void's boundless outskirts. As they were moving, other places were also undergoing undercurrents. The Dipankara ancient Buddha didn't feel depressed when the pill hall escaped from him once again. He leisurely returned to the Western Pure Lands. "The time is here. It seems like you've already planned everything out." The Bodhisattva of Guanyin sighed. The Dipankara ancient Buddha smiled and said, "There are too many karmic entanglements. It's hard for everything to go according to plan. Since this matter involves the 3 clear lineage, I won't be participating in it. Do as you wish, ancient Buddha." The Bodhisattva of Guanyin shook her head and put her palms together. Then she turned around and left. The Dipankara ancient Buddha smiled and put his palms together. Then he walked towards the center of the Western Pure Lands. "I wish to meet with the 9 underworlds. Buddha, please bestow me with your incarnation," said the Dipankara ancient Buddha with his palms together. A green lotus silently flew out from the temple and landed in front of the Dipankara ancient Buddha. The Dipankara ancient Buddha kept the green lotus. After thanking the Buddha, he immediately left. The 9 underworlds wasn't like the Tushita Palace. Without the Amitabha Buddha's guidance, the Dipankara ancient Buddha knew how to head there. Of course, he didn't have to head to the 9 underworlds personally. He only left the Western Pure Lands and sat casually within the void. With a single thought, the Dipankara ancient Buddha's perfect Buddha light flickered for a moment. Green smoke rose from the lamp's wick and instantly turned into a colorful scene. The colorful smoke condensed into the image of an old man. He faced the Dipankara ancient Buddha. "How have you been, Taoist? Why did you suddenly want to meet me?" "How have you been, Taoist?" Dipankara Buddha looked at the primordial heart devil and smiled. "I have something to discuss with you. Remember the mobile URL. M. Chapter 1585. The primordial devil smiled faintly. "What's the matter, Taoist Dipankara? Feel free to speak your mind." "I wish to exchange this item for a promise from the 9 underworlds." A green lotus appeared on the Dipankara ancient Buddha's palm. "I wonder if the 9 underworlds are interested." The primordial heart devil said, "It seems like Amitabha has agreed to it. If that's the case, I'm naturally willing." "Then I'll contact you later. said the Dipankara ancient Buddha with a smile. The primordial heart devil's image in front of him gradually dispersed. The colorful mist also disappeared, and the lights within the perfect Buddha radiance returned to normal. The Dipankara ancient Buddha stood up from the void. His figure was erratic, as if he resided in all time and space. Even the vast void seemed to have lost the concept of distance in front of him. After a short while, the Dipankara ancient Buddha's figure suddenly stabilized and appeared in another universe. The dark void in front of him suddenly emitted a bright radiance, and a Buddhist bigwig appeared from within. The Buddha radiance around him was pure gold, and the radiance of white flames circulated around him, illuminating the surrounding universe like a Buddhist land of light. "Greetings, ancient Buddha." The Dipankara ancient Buddha bowed, and the Dipankara ancient Buddha put his palms together and bowed back. "Greetings, Bodhisattva." This Buddhist Bhante was the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva. Together with the Bodhisattva Guanyin, they were known as the three sages of the West. He was one of the few Buddhist bigwigs in the Western Pure Lands. He used his unique light of wisdom to illuminate all living beings in the world, allowing them to escape from the calamity of blood and weapons, obtaining supreme power and might. Hence, the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva was known as the number one in light and wisdom. Although his title was Bodhisattva, he was the same as the Bodhisattva Guanyin and the Dipankara ancient Buddha. They were all bigwigs who had attained enlightenment and ascended to the grand heavenly realm. "Did the Buddha grant you an incarnation?" asked the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva. "That's right." The Dipankara ancient Buddha answered, "I've also seen the primordial heart devil." The Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva nodded. "The three clear lineage has made some movements. It was led by Taoist South Pole, who brought people to the void and discovered an ancient ruin." Fellow Taoist South Pole, Dipankara ancient Buddha was deep in thought. Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva smiled. "After inspecting the ruins, it seems like they're looking for the jade virtual Wuji apricot, yellow flag." The ancient Dipankara Buddha could not help but laugh. The Wuji apricot, yellow flag, was a treasure of the hollow jade temple in the past. It was impenetrable to all techniques and was impervious to all evil. Its defensive strength was one of the few treasures in the entire history of the Taoist sects. During the Great War of the ancient investiture of the gods, it had even blocked Mahamayuri's five-colored divine light. Since the ancient era, there were different opinions about its whereabouts. Some people thought that it was still hidden in the Jade Mirage Palace. Some thought that it had disappeared without a trace. And some thought that it had been taken away by the heavenly primogenitor who had transcended. In short, this treasure had been lost since ancient times. If they could be found again, it would indeed be very eye-catching. Compared to the Western Pure Lands, the Astro Mountains, starry seas might value this treasure more. If the demon race could obtain the Wuji apricot yellow flag, then their previous predicament of being unable to do anything to Mahamayuri would no longer exist. From this aspect, if he could snatch the Western Pure Lands, even if he didn't use it, he would still be able to maintain the deterrence of Mahamayuri, and the demon race would be helpless against him. However, compared to the immortal execution formation, the Wuji apricot yellow flag was clearly inferior. It was obviously a joke to say that Yen Zhaoge and the others had wholeheartedly searched for the yin-yang apricot yellow flag and neglected the final sword of the immortal exterminating four swords, as well as the possibility of the immortal exterminating formation reappearing. Without a doubt, this was a smokescreen set up by the orthodox Taoism. Moreover, it was not a very clever camouflage. He must have a follow-up plan, or he would be a laughing stock. Even if the Western Pure Lands and the Immortal Court laid a trap for the orthodox Taoism to jump into, they wouldn't pretend to believe in such a smokescreen. That would seem too urgent, and there would definitely be a trap. Instead, it would alarm the people from the Tao sect. I'll meet up with Great Rock Wisdom King and the others and continue searching for the Pill Hall. I'll give them some pressure. Dipankara, ancient Buddha, said. Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva nodded and said, I'll pay a visit to Taoist South Pole and see what they plan to do. Good. Thank you, Bodhisattva. Dipankara, ancient Buddha, put his palms together. The two mighty figures of the Buddhist sects then left. Thank you, Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor. Thank you, Taoist Gao. While traversing through the void, Yen Zhaoge cupped his hands towards the empty cosmos above his head. Yen Di did the same beside him. Within the cosmos, the sound of thunder seemed to be faintly discernible. However, no lightning flashes could be seen. It was as if the sound of thunder by Yen Zhaoge's ears was merely an illusion. Although the immeasurable heavenly Lord and the future Buddha had fought for nearly 100 years for the humanly essence stone's fragment, they were still fighting against each other and couldn't be bothered with other matters. However, the Amitabha Buddha and the Eastern sovereign Tai still maintained a certain level of restraint. While the two sides were suppressing each other, they were also threatening the Taoism and the 9 underworld's grand heavenly realm experts, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor, and the other Taoism heavenly lords still had to be careful with their actions, and they often hid within the void. The white-clothed Gao Han was traveling with Yen Zhaoge and the others. He smiled and said, Taoist Yen, you don't have to be so courteous. Now is a crucial moment for the orthodox Taoism's glory. It's my duty to help. No matter what, I still have to thank the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor and Taoist Gao. Yen Zhaoge said, the enemy's influence is too great. Success or failure hinges on this one move. As long as we have more strength, we would have more chances of winning. Gao Han smiled faintly. You're right. His gaze swept past Yen Zhaoge and Yen Di, and he praised, young, heavenly lord, heaven-trampling lord. Both of you are truly worthy of your title. When Yen Di became the Broad Creed Mountains chief, he was given the title Heaven-Trampling Lord due to the ancestral rules. Just like how only true immortals could be called emperors and only profound immortals could be called sovereigns, the title of Heavenly Lord was also very particular. It was a title only grand virtual immortals could give, especially when Yen Di was given the title Heaven-Trampling Lord. To a certain extent, it was even more of a taboo than Yen Zhaoge's title of Young Heavenly Lord. Only, in the 8 extremity world's lower realms, not many people took it seriously. Most of them treated it as a joke. However, after coming to the world beyond worlds and establishing the sky beyond skies, this title became even more eye-catching. Because of the Sword Sovereign, Yu Jinbei's guidance, and the exalted fire, Suo Mingzhong's endorsement, Yen Di had been progressing smoothly. Everyone gradually acknowledged it. Now that Yen Di had ascended to the 5 Qis unification realm in such a short period of time, he was practically the youngest virtual immortal in history. It seemed to have proven that he was capable enough to bear this title. Only more achievements were needed to prove it. Yen Di said quietly, in the past, I was known to be reckless in the 8 extremity worlds. I apologize for that. Taoist Gao. I have to thank Taoist Gao for giving me this title in the past. Yen Zhaoge chuckled. Gao Han smiled as well. I've always been filled with expectations for Taoist Yen. This time, it's an unprecedented feat of our Taoism after the great calamity. His voice stopped, and his gaze flickered slightly. Yen Zhaoge and Yen Di also looked forward. Suddenly, a devilish wind and Buddha light appeared together. Gao Han's expression turned serious, and he muttered, a huge feat and also a huge test. Chapter 1586. In the faraway void, a demonic wind and Buddha light suddenly flickered, obstructing Yen Zhaoge's group's path of retreat. Yen Zhaoge and the others weren't surprised. The reason why the other party could catch up to them was because they purposely revealed their tracks and left behind clues. The ferocious demonic wind permeated the surroundings, enveloping the entire universe as if it wanted to devour Yen Zhaoge and the others. Suddenly, thunderbolts exploded within the void. Lightning radiances surged, forming an independent heaven and earth. While protecting Yen Zhaoge and the others, it also isolated the demonic wind outside. Wind and thunder continuously surged, clashing intensely against each other. The newcomer was a demon race great sage. Currently, he was facing off against the southern extremity longevity emperor. The two grand heavenly realm experts were clashing against each other. As they clashed, the profundities of their concepts canceled out a little, causing their true appearances to be revealed in front of Yen Zhaoge and the others. Amidst the thunderbolts, an old man wearing a crown and a Taoist robe stood above the 9 heavens. Streaks of thunderbolts seemed to have transformed into a carriage that carried him. Fragrant clouds covered the entire area. It was the Jade clear lineages style, but it was unique. Under his control, the incomparably violent thunderbolts were orderly. They displayed the opening of chaos, the changes in space, the circulation of the 5 elements, the birth of myriad existences, the convergence of yin and yang, the alternation of day and night, and various other profundities. The profundities of the myriad existences were displayed to their fullest within the thunderous sound. It was one of the Taoism Heavenly Court's divine palaces, 4 imperials, the southern extremity longevity emperor. On the other side of the thunderbolt ocean, a tall figure stood amidst the demonic winds. The other party stood upright like a human. He wore armor and a silver helmet. He held a crescent spade in his hand, and his voice was like a crane's cry that shook the 9 heavens. From afar, there was only one head and one face. But up close, there were people all around. There were eyes in front, eyes behind, and eyes everywhere. There were also mouths to the left and right. 9-headed great sage. After seeing the other party's appearance, Yen Zhaoge squinted his eyes. The person who was facing off against the southern extremity longevity emperor was none other than the great sage of the demon race, known as the 9-headed bug. He had once shaken the world during the middle journey to the West era. He was a winged insect, the ancient divine bird of the 9 phoenixes. He was also known as the ghost chariot or 9-headed bird. During the Middle Era, he was nearly beaten to death by Yang Jian and Yang Erlang. After that, he lived in seclusion and cultivated. Only now did he return to the world. He was still as ferocious as before, seeking revenge against Yang Jian. Meanwhile, seeing this 9-headed bug, the faces of Yen Zhaoge and Yen Di both sunk. About 100 years ago, the Tao Gate was struck by the devil calamity. The 3 extinct devils, water devil, earth devil, and metal devil, sought to be reborn one after another, and their bodies fell into the hands of the Tao Gate's disciples. Yen Zhaoge and the others planned to resolve the devil calamity. In the end, the 9-headed bug led a portion of the great demons and interfered. As a result, Yen Zhaoge and the others failed. Chun Xuanzong, Jie Mingkong, and Chu Lili narrowly escaped death and were sealed in ice. Looking at the 9-headed bug, Yen Zhaoge recalled the smile of Chun Xuanzong and his disciples. A cold glint flashed in his eyes as he sized up the people beside the 9-headed bug and saw another familiar face. He was dressed like a Taoist priest, wearing a bright red golden crown, wearing a black zizi black robe, a pair of green cloud-like shoes, and a yellow duke Lu ribbon tied around his waist. This old man's face was like a melon, and his eyes were like bright stars. Although he looked like a perfected Taoist, there was a demonic aura around him. 100-eyed demon lord. Although this old man had yet to ascend to the grand heavenly realm, his demonic arts were so strong that even some grand heavenly realm experts couldn't take him down. He was a top-notch figure within the grand virtual realm. In the past, when Yen Zhaoge and the others moved the roving Jade Heavens into the Pill Hall, they were obstructed by this old centipede and other great demons. Both sides were familiar with each other, and now they met again. Other than the two great demons, Buddha lights were surging. The three Buddhist Bantis stood by the side, keeping a distance from the 100-eyed demon lord. However, they were clearly here for Yen Zhaoge and the others. In the middle, a Buddhist Banti sat in the lotus position. His right hand formed the fearless seal, while his left hand held onto a lotus flower. On the lotus flower, there were Ru-Yi beads. Although it was their first time meeting each other, Yen Zhaoge, Yen Di, and Gao Han could recognize him. He was the famous Guy Barrier removal bodhisattva of the Orthodox Buddhism. He was a top-notch Buddhist expert within the grand virtual realm, the Guy Barrier removal yard's head. The Buddhist Banti on the left of the Guy Barrier removal bodhisattva carried a huge bag in his hand. He had a smile on his face, and his expression was filled with joy. The Buddhist Banti on the right was sitting in the lotus position like the bodhisattva. He was digging his ears with one hand, and he seemed to be at ease. Cloth bag Arhut, ear digging Arhut. Gao Han smiled. According to the Buddhism, becoming an Arhut is the true fruit. However, using our Taoism standard, perhaps we should call him a bodhisattva. The Guy Barrier removal bodhisattva said calmly, "Greetings, Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor." Within the void, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor said from the Thunder Chariot, "There's no need for formalities, and there's no need for words. Since we've met each other today, we can only fight. Fellow Taoists, please." His voice was like the 9 heavens' thunder punishment, which was capable of cleansing the world's sins. At the same time, it was as gentle as the gentle breeze and drizzle, the two contradicting feelings intertwined, forming a unique charm. As soon as he finished speaking, he stopped talking. Rumbling thunder started spreading towards the surroundings. The demonic wind surged and obstructed the thunder. The 9-headed bug opened its mouth and said, "You're foolish beyond measure. To think that you're trying to deceive us and even risk your lives. However, since your whereabouts have already been discovered, how could we possibly give you the chance to escape? There's no need to search for the awakened Sky Hall and the immortal ending ancient sword. Everything would be within my grasp if I were to capture you. Even the 3 clear lineage would suffer the fate of being chopped in half." Yen Di said coldly, "I'm afraid that you don't have that capability." "Ignorant junior." The 9-headed bug laughed out loud. "What do you think is a grand heavenly realm? Once the news is sent out, we'll know your exact location. To us, it's fine if we don't know your exact location. But if we do know your whereabouts, other than a few rare exceptions, wouldn't we be able to reach you in an instant?" As if to prove his words were true, the surrounding void actually began to show signs of instability in this short period of time. It was as if there was more than one figure faintly appearing, as if they were about to descend upon this place out of nowhere. Fellow Taoist, it's too early to be happy. The Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor's body suddenly spread towards his surroundings. The light screen became fainter and fainter. However, it was thin and unbreakable. Like a huge bubble, it actually surrounded the 2 demons and 3 Buddhas. Under the encirclement of the lightning halo, the demonic winds and Buddha lights seemed to be unable to pass through. Impressive. The 9-headed great sage was enraged. He raised the crescent moon spade in his hand and slashed towards the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor. At the same time, his 9 heads roared towards the skies, causing boundless astral winds to surge and slash towards the lightning screen that surrounded the entire universe. As the thunder rumbled, it continuously exploded. However, As soon as the thunder dissipated, a new one would immediately appear. It was as if there was no end to it, and it was doing its best to obstruct the hurricane. Yen Zhaoge looked towards the other opponents and saw the covering barrier bodhisattva and the other two Buddhist bantis. Their expressions were calm, and they weren't flustered at all. The covering barrier bodhisattva softly chanted the Buddha's name. On the lotus flower in his hand, the ru-e pearl flickered with radiance. The radiance became brighter and brighter. In the end, it was even brighter than the covering barrier bodhisattva's Buddha light, as if it could illuminate the entire boundless universe. My Buddha is merciful. Fellow Taoist Southern Extremity, how have you been? A figure slowly walked out from the radiance. The Great Strength Bodhisattva of the Grand Heavenly Realm, Chapter 1587. The Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva appeared. Boundless radiance revolved around it as if it had transformed into boundless white flames that purified everything in the world. Even the extremely fierce rolling thunder was gradually being melted by the white flames. The Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor stood on the lightning chariot and pointed with his finger. A clump of chaotic lightning landed within the boundless radiance and exploded. A majestic power that resembled the primordial world forcefully tore apart the endless radiance that covered the entire universe. Primordial ancestral lightning, the number one lightning technique among the 9 heavens' divine lightning. As the thunder rumbled, the white flames around the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva that illuminated the world still remained. However, they were scattered and temporarily disintegrated. Although the radiance was about to reconnect, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor had already used another technique. Another grand, illusory, spatial thunder reappeared. It was still like a bubble made of lightning, emitting sizzling sounds. However, this grand, illusory spatial thunder did not expand. Instead, it contracted and collapsed towards the center. Instantly, a powerful suction force devoured the surrounding radiance and pulled it towards the center of the collapsing body. It was like a dark cage that imprisoned the radiance. Lotuses appeared beneath the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva's feet. He instantly arrived beside the lightning ball formed by the grand illusory spatial thunder and tapped it lightly. The dark cage instantly shattered. Boundless radiance reappeared in the world. At the same time, the 9-headed bug swung the crescent moon shovel and tore a hole in the thin lightning barrier that enveloped the person within. But before he could make his next move, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor had already shattered the thunder chariot beneath his feet, not caring that the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva would break the thunder cage of darkness and release the light. The lightning cage shattered, and streaks of lightning shot out in all directions before reinforcing the broken lightning barrier. In just an instant, the lightning barrier healed itself and formed a barrier in front of the person within. Let's see how many times you can replenish it. The 9-headed bug did not mind and continued attacking. The Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva also unleashed a boundless radiance that illuminated the world and dispelled the lightning. The Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor was powerful. Even though he was fighting against 2 opponents, he still maintained the light barrier formed by the grand illusory spatial thunder. However, his opponents were all powerful individuals. Even though the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor could protect himself for a short period of time, the lightning barrier could only last for a short while. And this was under the situation where the Tao ancestor had yet to make a move. If the Tao ancestor had made a move, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor would have to immediately think of a way to escape and hide within the void. While the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor was fighting against the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva, and the 9-headed bug, the 100-eyed demon lord, was also getting restless. He stared coldly at Yen Zhaoge and his father. Back then, When he invaded the roving Jade Heavens, he had suffered some losses and could only watch as a group of prime clear descendants left safely. Moreover, he'd even lost his divine ability because of Feng Yunxing's Doomsday Blade. After close to 100 years of secluded cultivation, the 100-eyed demon lord had finally recovered some of its vitality. Now, seeing Yan Zhaoga's group, it was even more like meeting enemies, its eyes exceptionally red. The 100-eyed demon lord was confident that other than Feng Yunsheng, who cultivated the destruction of Luo Yuan, and Shangqing, heavenly lord, who cultivated the chaos extinguishing scripture, he was not afraid of anyone in the same realm as him. While Yan Zhaoga and Yendi's fame had spread far and wide, the 100-eyed demon lord was not worried. He was extraordinarily talented and possessed remarkable abilities. Even many grand heavenly realm experts couldn't do anything to him. He felt that this was the best time for him to take revenge. Even if he couldn't kill the enemy himself, he could still buy some time for the Mahasthamaprapta Bodhisattva and the nine-headed great sage to break the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor's secret technique. Then, a large number of reinforcements would soon arrive. Therefore, the 100-eyed demon Lord did not hesitate and strode forward. Young Empyrean, Lord Tatian, what a great reputation! Did you ask for my permission? With a roar, the 100-eyed demon Lord unsheathed his sword. The dark yellow sword Qi resembled a great river overlooking the entire universe, slashing towards Yan Zhaoga and his son. Yan Di stood silently where he was, not moving as he extended his right hand and clenched the air, as if grabbing the hilt of a saber before pulling it out from within. Continuous thunderclaps resounded as a saber of purple light, completely condensed from thunderbolts, appeared in Yendi's hands. Then he raised the long saber high above his head and brought it down as if the heavens were collapsing. The violent and overbearing saber light clashed with the dark yellow sword Qi in the air. The saber radiance surged forward, as if it could sever the flow of the heavenly river and sever the sword Qi. Bastard! The 100-eyed demon lord was shocked. As his sword Qi rampaged, the all-encompassing dark lights converged into one. He no longer cared about Yan Zhaoga and Gao Han as he focused on attacking Yan Di alone. Yan Di remained fearless. He strode forward and suppressed the 100-eyed demon lord's attack with an even more domineering stance. The 100-eyed demon lord was furious. In just a few hundred years, how did so many troublesome people appear in the three clear lineage? He retracted his anger, and his gaze turned cold as he no longer looked down on Yan Di. As he attacked with his sword once more, brilliance started condensing on top of his head. After the brilliance condensed, the 100-eyed demon lord's demonic Qi surged wildly. The strength of his strength instantly caused others to look at him in a different light. However, as Yan Di let out a long roar, a brilliance also appeared on top of his head. As the brilliance condensed on top of his head, Yan Di's saber's momentum also continued to increase. He similarly slashed apart the 100-eyed demon lord's sword Qi and almost chopped off the 100-eyed demon lord's sword-wielding arm. The 100-eyed demon lord snorted coldly. Two splendors condensed on top of his head, and his essence, Qi, and spirit all reached the peak of his current realm. At this moment, he no longer held back. He suddenly untied his belt and took off his black robe. After taking off his clothes, the 100-eyed demon lord raised his hands together. There were 1,000 eyes on his sides, and they all emitted yellow fog and golden light. The dense yellow fog seemed like clouds were spurting out from his sides. The brilliant golden light seemed like it was setting fire to the 1,000 eyes. Wherever the fog passed, it enveloped Yan Di. The surrounding space seemed to have been frozen, and Yan Di was unable to move at all. However, Yan Di glanced at him coldly and said, Do we need to ask you for the names of us father and son? A brilliance flowed on top of his head, and a purple saber of light was raised high above his head. Then the saber slashed downwards. Creation saber. Instantaneous heaven annihilation. Even if the 100-eyed demon lord's innate abilities were extremely powerful, the dense yellow fog was still rippling under Yen Di's saber's momentum. Although the yellow fog was continuously replenished as if it was endless, it was still continuously being destroyed. The two sides seemed to have entered a stalemate. However, Yen Di's hand that was wielding the saber was stable, and it was descending bit by bit at a speed that was hard to detect with the naked eye. The terrifying and tyrannical saber was also descending bit by bit. It was getting closer and closer to the 100-eyed demon lord. Facing Yen Di's saber head-on, he seemed to be able to clearly feel the coldness and heat of the saber formed of thunderbolts. Perhaps its speed was extremely slow, and it was unknown how long it would take for it to reach its final destination. However, this process seemed to be hard to stop, hard to reverse, unchangeable, and undefiable. All the 100-eyed demon lord could do with all his might was to delay the arrival of that final moment. However, what would come would eventually come. Just like the progress of the heavens and earth, the changes of creation, its momentum was unstoppable. Chapter 1588. At this moment, the 100-eyed demon lord was filled with frustration. His innate divine abilities were astonishing, rarely having a counter. Even at the immortal realm, there were times when he could accomplish miraculous feats of surpassing cultivation realms to fight, his name moving throughout the ages. However, in recent years, he had continuously encountered his nemesis. Before was Feng Yunsheng, behind was Yen Di. Twice, he was forced into a dangerous situation by opponents whose cultivation base was lower than his. Now, he had to face the same choice as the last time he faced Feng Yunsheng. He could either fight to the death or watch helplessly as he slowly walked towards failure. Different opponents, similar scenes, caused this old demon, who had been famous since the Middle Era, to feel so oppressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Fellow Taoists, Yan Xintang and Di Qinglian, were truly heaven-defying geniuses back then. Gao Han exclaimed as he looked at Yen Di. However, heaven-trampling Lord still managed to bring it to greater heights in the end. He has already gone even further on the foundation you two have set. I thank fellow Taoist Gao for your praise on behalf of my father, but now doesn't seem to be the time to say such things. Yen Zhaoge looked at the covering barrier removal bodhisattva and the others and asked via sound transmission, "How's Taoist Gao's harvest?" Gao Han nodded and similarly transmitted, "I'm almost done here. What about Taoist Yen?" "I don't have any more problems here," Yen Zhaoge answered. "Since that's the case, it would be more convenient to move a little later, and we would be able to throw off our tail within a certain amount of time." Yen Zhaoge had not hesitated to take the risk himself in order to break through the other party's tracking technique first, gaining a greater chance of success when they truly obtained the immortal ending sword later on. This was also the reason why Gao Han came instead of Ling Qing. Having achieved his goal, he now had to consider how to retreat unscathed. Yen Zhaoge asked, "After my father picked up that old centipede as his opponent, wouldn't it be inconvenient for Taoist Gao to act against the remaining people?" Gao Han smiled. "How could that be?" As he spoke, he raised his palm, and boundless light gathered. But compared to the purity and brightness of Buddhist techniques, when Gao Han raised his hand, the light was even hotter, more intense, and heavier. At this moment, even the true great sun was not as dazzling as Gao Han's fist. Amidst the radiance, the explosive power had already landed on the cover removal bodhisattva's head. A cloth bag suddenly appeared, heading towards Gao Han. The bag opened as if it could contain the universe, and was about to contain the glorious sun that Gao Han had smashed into it. The three Buddhist Bantis weren't as proactive as the hundred-eyed demon lord. Facing Yen Zhaoge and Gao Han, they were neither anxious nor impatient, attempting to deal with them patiently. Once the nine-headed great sage and the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva broke through the southern extremity longevity emperor's secret technique, a large number of other experts would soon arrive to assist. While it would be good to find the immortal exterminating four swords, since Yen Zhaoge and the others dared to show themselves trying to capture and kill them might not be any less beneficial than finding the immortal exterminating four swords. However, Yen Zhaoge was much more brutal than they had expected. The 18 Arhats truly live up to their reputation. Venerable Ingtuo, I've long heard of your name. Yen Zhaoge looked at the cloth sack Arhat that was rushing towards Gao Han and sighed. In the past, when the central blessed lands of Saha split apart, the 35 Buddhas, 500 Arhats, and 3,000 Jiti perished under the Maitreya Buddha's palm. Although Buddhism managed to preserve its vitality, it was still incomparable to the Middle Era. As he spoke, he walked towards the cover removal Bodhisattva and the ear-digging Arhat. I've always heard of the Buddha's benevolence. If that's the case, why would you make things difficult for us Taoism during the Great Calamity? The cover removal Bodhisattva smiled. It's just that our Taoists are different. Our cultivation isn't up to par, and we have plenty of troubles that we can't see through. I apologize for my embarrassment, Taoist Yen. I won't. Since our Taoists are different, let's see who's the real deal. After saying that, Yen Zhaoge's figure seemed to have grown in the air. In the eyes of the Buddhist Bantis, his figure was so huge that it seemed to have filled up the entire cosmos. With a step forward, he instantly appeared in front of the cover removal Bodhisattva. In the cover removal Bodhisattva's vision, his opponent had already become incomparably tall. Now that he was getting closer to him, he felt as if the sky was collapsing and crashing down on him. 5 Chi's unifications, ascending to grand void. Yen Zhaoge's cyclic, heavenly scripture cultivation had already reached the perfection realm. He didn't even need to make any movements. Just by standing there, the horrifying might of the cyclic heavenly seal would unknowingly manifest, suppressing his opponent's form and spirit. The cover removal Bodhisattva's mental cultivation surpassed experts of the same realm. She quickly regained her senses. A lotus bloomed beneath her feet, and she floated backward, jumping out of Yen Zhaoge's cyclic heavenly seal's suppression range. However, at this moment, Yen Zhaoge suddenly stretched out his palm. With this stretch of his hand, the cover removal Bodhisattva's figure returned to his palm. However, on the other side, the ear-digging Arhat's figure flashed and appeared by Yen Zhaoge's side. His finger lightly tapped towards Yen Zhaoge's wrist. The change in Yen Zhaoge's move seemed to be completely within his expectations. Now, the two of them were like fellow apprentices who knew each other very well. Yen Zhaoge seemed to have purposely sent his flaw to the ear-digging Arhat. The ear-digging Arhat was famous in the blessed lands of Buddhism because of his ear root. The so-called ear root was one of the 6 sources of understanding that came from awakening. As for the so-called 6 sources of peace, the ear root was one of them. In Buddhism, other than not listening to all sorts of obscene voices, they were also not allowed to listen to other people's secrets. That Jia Shi Venerable was extremely proficient in the ear root, which was why he was known as the ear-digging Arhat, to show that his ear root was clean. However, on the other hand, if his ear root wasn't clean and listened to other people's secrets, he would still be one of the few Buddhist Bantis of the same realm. While he had not become a Buddha, he still possessed the ability to read minds, being renowned under the heavens. At this moment, he was using this method to predict Yen Zhaoge's actions before restricting them. However, just as the ear-digging Arhat's finger was about to tap on Yen Zhaoge's wrist, Yen Zhaoga suddenly flipped his palm. The abruptness of that movement completely exceeded the ear-digging Arhut's expectations. It wasn't that Yen Zhaoga's movement was very fast and ingenious. Instead, it was as if this had been Yen Zhaoga's original intention. It wasn't that Yen Zhaoga had sent his vitals right before the ear-digging Arhut. Instead, it seemed like the ear-digging Arhut had purposefully stepped into Yen Zhaoga's trap. Yen Zhaoga opened and closed his fingers, directly grabbing the ear-digging Arhut's finger before twisting it. A crisp crack resounded. The finger of this Buddhist Bandi, who was equivalent to a Taoist heavenly monarch, instantly shattered. Even more shocking was that the sound of shattering resounded unceasingly, spreading upwards along the ear-digging Arhut's finger, passing through his wrist to his arm, and then to his elbow, even continuing upwards. Jade green light flickered within Yen Zhaoga's pupils. He possessed the peerless heavenly scripture, which allowed him to disregard supreme Buddhist martial arts such as the mind-reading scripture. After cultivating in the origin heavenly scripture and the Heartswell heavenly scripture, he could even create illusions, causing the ear-digging Arhut, who was originally unable to predict him, to make a ridiculous mistake. At this moment, under Yen Zhaoga's palm, the power of countless cyclic heavenly seals seemed to have been superimposed upon it, intertwining and changing in reverse, all of which were poured into the ear-digging Arhut's body. While he had only grabbed one of his fingers, it was as if countless cyclic heavenly seals had struck his body. Even with the sturdiness of the golden body of Buddhism, it instantly turned into fragile porcelain and was crushed into pieces by Yen Zhaoga. August Flying Eagle said Sad Face P.S. Updated March 13th. Chapter 1589. The martial arts of the Buddhist sect comprehended the impermanence of life and death, the principles of the Vajra bubble and shadow. It was especially good at tempering the toughness of the body and the steadiness of the mind. After cultivating the golden body, one's defense would be so strong that it would be difficult for one's opponent to injure them. Even if his defenses were breached, the outcome wouldn't be too bad under normal circumstances. Most of the time, Buddhist martial artists would rely on the tyrannical golden body and adopt the method of exchanging injury for injury, thereby seeking victory in dangerous situations and defeating strong enemies. There was even no lack of legends of the weak defeating the strong. But now, a Buddhist supremacy who was equivalent to a Taoist heavenly monarch had his golden body shattered by an opponent of the same realm. Furthermore, it wasn't a direct slap. Instead, it was the combination of domineering strength and exquisite techniques. It was exquisite to the extreme, and it created a terrifying scene. Yen Zhaoga grabbed one of the ear-digging Arhut's fingers. At the same time that he shattered his finger, he also shattered his arm and wanted to shatter his entire body. The Buddhist light on the ear-digging Arhut's face dimmed, showing signs of decline. He took a deep breath, and a golden lamp suddenly lit up above his head, revealing his saraira. The martial arts of Buddhism were different from those of Taoism. When one mastered it to the peak, it would not be like the 3 flowers converging crown or the 5 chis gathering origin. However, the ear-digging Arhut now had the golden lamp and the saraira. He was already on par with the heavenly monarch of Taoism. At the juncture of life and death, the ear-digging Arhut dropped his saraira and overturned his golden lamp. With this boost, the strength of the ear-digging Arhut's abilities skyrocketed. The glazed Buddha light on his golden body lit up once more, and his defensive capabilities increased to withstand Yen Zhaoga's overwhelming strength. At the same time, specks of lantern light accompanied a saraira descending from the sky, striking towards Yen Zhaoga, forcing him to let go. However, Yen Zhaoga did not move at all, a faint plain-colored cloud chi emanating from the surface of his body, as at the same time, his body fluctuated between real and illusory, as though there was a void within. under the combination of the grand beginning bright emptiness form and the grand plainness immeasurable body. Its defensive prowess was even stronger than most of Buddhism's golden body, supreme martial arts. It completely disregarded the descending lights. Even if that Sarira came smashing towards him, it was still shattered by Yen Zhaoga's protective immortal essence. Meanwhile, Yen Zhaoga's palm force surged forward with an unstoppable momentum. Even when the ear-digging Arhut manifested the golden lamp Sarira and strengthened his golden body to the maximum, he was still hard-pressed to stand against Yen Zhaoga's ferocious, tyrannical strength. His arm was shattered all the way to his shoulder, wanting to spread throughout his entire body. Although the ear-digging Arhut was shocked, he did not panic. His expression was firm. He made a prompt decision and used his other hand to slash at his own shoulder. The flesh on the ear-digging Arhut's shoulder burst open, and the aftershock of the force caused cracks to appear on the ear-digging Arhut's golden body. Yen Zhaoga opened his palm. The ear-digging Arhat's arm had already turned into fine powder, no longer existing. His palm continued moving forward and instantly reached the top of the Buddhist Bani's head, who was already heavily injured and whose speed and strength had all been reduced. Not to mention Kailash Bodhisattva and Cloth Bag Arhut. Even Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva was surprised. After exchanging just 3 blows, the ear-digging Arhut, one of the 18 Arhats of the past, whom Protector Yushan had battled at the same cultivation level, was actually about to be slain by Yen Zhaoga. A white Buddhist light descended and enveloped the ear-piercing Arhut's body. Yen Zhaoga's palm struck the white light. In an instant, the flesh and blood on the ear-digging Arhut's forehead trembled violently. White light flickered incessantly, and the tranquility that had lost its intelligence became extremely dazzling. It was the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva who protected him. The Bodhisattva eliminating barrier took the opportunity to shake the lotus flower in his hand. The rui bead flashed with light and sucked in the ear-digging Arhut, finally saving the ear-digging Arhut. Even though the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva had saved the ear-gouging Arhut, he had also relieved some of the pressure on the southern extremity longevity emperor, allowing him to force back the 9-headed bug that was attempting to destroy the light barrier formed by the grand illusory spatial lightning. The 9-headed bug was greatly enraged as its eyeballs swiveled, a ferocious light flickering within as it looked towards Yen Zhaoga. He and the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva had originally intended to keep the southern extremity longevity emperor behind as well, which was why they were in such a hurry to contact the outside world. Now that the 9-headed bug was enraged, it gave up on the southern extremity longevity emperor and lunged towards Yen Zhaoga and the others. Even if the southern extremity longevity emperor were to escape, Yen Zhaoga and his son must remain behind. Looking at the white Buddha light blocking his palm, Yen Zhaoga let out a chuckle. A dense green light suddenly burst forth from his palm. As a brutal light flickered, a simple, unadorned sword appeared within Yen Zhaoga's hands. Cold green radiances circulated on the ancient sword. Rays of green radiances and dense sword lights devoured the cosmos, instantly illuminating the surrounding world with a greenish hue. Even the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva's all-encompassing white Buddha light was tainted with a green hue at its center, as if it was wounded. The radiant Buddha's kingdom of light was cut apart. Wherever the green radiances passed, the wisdom radiance's white flames seemed to have reached the end of its road, withering and dimming. With the sword in hand, Yen Zhaoga's entire aura changed. Wherever the sword lights passed, the Tao crumbled, and all arts were slashed apart. Immortal extermination. The horrifying green sword light streaked past, and the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva's Buddha light was forcefully slashed apart by Yen Zhaoga. After slashing apart the Buddha light, the sword instantly arrived in front of the ear-digging Arhut, and the Bodhisattva eliminating barrier. After receiving the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva's protection, the ear-digging Arhat, who had just escaped from death, could only stare at the sword light with his mouth agape. The green radiances were silent, without any terrifying might. However, amidst this silence, it brought about the horror of the apocalypse. As the green radiances devoured, they soundlessly disintegrated the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva's Buddha light, extinguishing the eternal brightness Buddha fire. Soundlessly destroying the ear-digging Arhut's body was called the glazed golden body withering. Unlike Yen Zhaoga's previous cyclic heavenly seal, where the sword lights passed, the ear-digging Arhut's body didn't even have any additional wounds. Only a red that suddenly appeared on his forehead. The green sword light immediately retracted, leaving only the dot on the ear-digging Arhut's forehead. Like a balloon leaking air, the faint glazed Buddha light continuously leaked out, unable to be suppressed. Along with it, the life of one of Buddhism's 18 Arhats also leaked out. With the immortal extermination sword in hand, Yen Zhaoga forcefully broke through the grand heavenly realm expert's protection and killed the ear-digging Arhat right in front of the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva. With his attack succeeding, the immortal extermination sword in Yen Zhaoga's hand turned around and drew a graceful arc in midair, slashing towards another direction, which happened to block the nine-headed bug's crescent moon spade. Under the immortal extermination sword's miraculous circulation, it dissolved the grand heavenly realm expert's miraculousness to a certain extent, allowing Yen Zhaoga to slay the ear-digging Arhat before the nine-headed bug. Upon seeing this, the nine-headed bug was enraged. While the ear-digging Arhat was a Buddhist Bani and wasn't on the same path as him, how could this great demon not be enraged when Yen Zhaoga killed him right in front of him? His 9 heads roared in unison, causing a myriad of storms to wreak havoc. A single gale could slay countless Taishu heavenly monarchs. Now, hundreds and thousands of such gale condensed, slashing the heavens and splitting the earth, and slashing towards Yen Zhaoga. Jade green radiance flickered within Yen Zhaoga's eyes, and the immortal extermination sword in his hand changed. Countless sword lights intertwined, transforming into thousands of sword formations. They countered each other's moves and blocked the 9 heavens gale that was tearing the heavens apart. At the same time, the cloth sack Arhat suddenly appeared behind him. He held a bag in his hand and came crashing down towards his head. The cloth sack Arhat gave up on Gao Han and wanted to deal with him first. Yen Zhaoga raised his other hand and took the initiative to attack his opponent's bag. At this moment, his palm seemed to have transformed into an existence that resembled an axe yet wasn't an axe, resembled a banner yet wasn't. Chapter 1590. The cloth bag Arhat temporarily gave up on Gao Han and turned to cover Yen Zhaoga with his cloth bag. While the immortal exterminating sword in Yen Zhaoga's hand was ferocious, it still needed to withstand the 9-headed great sage's astral winds. If there was even the slightest mistake, he might be decapitated. As a result, the cloth bag Arhat grasped the opportunity and suddenly appeared behind Yen Zhaoga with every step he took. After the pocket was opened, the space inside was blurry, making it difficult to figure out. Its effect was similar to the peerless technique of the Wu Zhuangguan, the heaven and earth in the sleeve. The cloth bag Arhat's strength was naturally far from Zhen Yuanzi, who was a grand heavenly immortal. However, among the experts of the grand virtual realm, his technique was considered top-notch. Once an opponent of the same level was enveloped by his pocket, they would be lost within, unable to break free. However, a jade-green spiritual light flickered within Yen Zhaoga's eyes, as though he had long since anticipated the cloth bag Arhat's actions. When the cloth bag Arhat came behind him, his empty left hand was already raised. When the mouth of the sack was about to fall on him, his left hand had already stabbed into the sack. Streams of qi intertwined around Yen Zhaoge's left hand, resembling an axe yet not an axe, resembling a banner yet not a banner. The next moment, with Yen Zhaoge's left hand as the center, these streams of qi abruptly expanded and erupted in all directions. The heaven-splitting halberd had undergone another transformation. Break primal chaos. The concept of opening the primordial world and the beginning of creation. The primal chaos was broken, and from nothing came into being. The universe expanded, and all living things were born. As the terrifying airflow spread out, it directly shattered the chaotic space and time in the cloth bag Arhut's pocket. In the chaos, the earth, water, fire, and wind surged and exploded. Yet, beneath Yen Zhaoge's breaking chaos, the chaotic phenomena of earth, water, fire, and wind rapidly stabilized once more. From stability to chaos, and from chaos to stability, a new world and a new order were established. However, this order was no longer up to the cloth bag Arhut, breaking the old to welcome the new. Since a new world was born and a new era was established, everything of the old would be buried and destroyed. With a ripping sound, the cloth sack Arhut's sack was forcibly ripped apart by Yen Zhaoge's strength. The cloth bag Arhut chanted the name of Buddha in a low voice, put away the damaged cloth bag, and quickly retreated. But at the same time, a palm suddenly appeared behind him. The palm was silent, as if it was hidden in the darkness. However, the moment this hand approached the cloth bag Arhut, it shone with dazzling light, even more resplendent than the sun. The boundless power struck the cloth bag Arhut's body, immediately causing his golden body to crack. It was Gao Han. The cloth bag Arhut abandoning him and turning to attack Yen Zhaoge was undoubtedly equivalent to letting Gao Han go free. The reason why the cloth bag Arhut dared to do so was because there was a bodhisattva who would help him block Gao Han. There was no need for verbal communication. This bit of tacit understanding and eyesight was not lacking. The bodhisattva exorcism was unable to protect the ear-digging Arhut, but he did not have time to think. Seeing the movements of the cloth bag Arhut, he very tacitly changed his position to block Gao Han. However, Gao Han, who had always concealed his abilities, first raised the holy radiance banner that he had never taken out before, and blocked the lotus flower rui beads in Gai Jia Bodhisattva's hands. Then, the palm force that was imprinted on the cloth bag Arhut's back changed from darkness to light, and then back to darkness again. The cloth bag Arhut originally circulated the profundities of gathered truths and performed various Buddhist defensive supreme martial arts, intending to hide his pain and frustrations and dissolve Gao Han's attack. However, Gao Han's sun suddenly changed, from bright to dark and mysterious. The chilly power followed the cloth bag Arhut's gathered truths and entered his body. It was like maggots on his bones, causing the cloth bag Arhut to be unable to withstand it. At the same time, after the pearl in the Bodhisattva exorcism's hand was blocked by Gao Han's holy radiance banner, he immediately changed his move. The Bodhi's wisdom transformed into the Vajra's angry eyes and attacked Gao Han with the Vajra exorcism's great virtue. Gao Han's entire body seemed to be enveloped by boundless darkness. In Yen Zhaoge's eyes, this scene was like the rebirth of the exalted concealed luminary, Yang Su, who had reached the duo flower's converged prominence virtual immortal realm. The cloth bag Arhut's defensive technique was broken by Gao Han. Instead, it was filled with insidious venom. The Bodhisattva exorcism's attack was cleverly dispelled by Gao Han. Although his figure was shaken by the Bodhisattva exorcism's attack, it was no big deal. After further injuring the cloth bag Arhut, causing him to temporarily lose his combat prowess, Gao Han's aura changed once again. Within the darkness, radiances blossomed. He turned around and forcefully clashed with the Bodhisattva exorcism's Vajra technique. He was no longer in a passive position. Yen Zhaoga's chaos breaking tore apart the cloth bag Arhut's pocket. The nine-headed bug was enraged. The three flowers converged prominence above his head roared. He abandoned the crescent moon shovel and transformed his body. This demon race great sage revealed the heavenly law's embodiment and transformed into a nine-headed strange bird. His figure covered the skies and covered the sun. His nine heads cried out in unison, causing stars to descend. The surrounding cosmos displayed the phenomenon of a meteor shower. Countless storms swept across the void. Green radiances flickered within Yen Zhaoga's eyes, forming numerous runes with indecipherable meanings. He wielded the immortal extermination sword. As his sword arts changed, he pushed his control over the ancient sword to its limits. The dense green sword lights intersected, forming one sword formation after another, blocking the storms. For most grand virtual immortals, the amount of power consumed by each sword formation was an astronomical figure. However, Yen Zhaoga possessed many supreme martial arts, and his accumulation was extremely deep. Even facing such a huge consumption, he was still calm and composed. His attacks were flawless, not allowing the nine-headed bug to find an opening. On the other side, the battle between Yen Di and the hundred-eyed demon lord was also reaching its climax. Under the obstruction of the dense yellow light fog, Yen Di's saber was still descending bit by bit, getting closer and closer to the hundred-eyed demon lord. Although its speed was slow, its momentum was unstoppable. The hundred-eyed demon lord was furious. He suddenly gave up on defending and waved his sword. The dense yellow river of sword chi slashed towards Yen Di as the obstruction disappeared. Yen Di's saber also sped up, slashing towards the hundred-eyed demon lord. Both sides were now attacking each other, and both sides were about to suffer heavy losses. It was just like the battle between the hundred-eyed demon lord and Feng Yunsheng. However, the hundred-eyed demon lord was feeling extremely helpless. He never thought that he would be forced to such a state again. However, what made him even angrier was that although Yen Di's figure was unable to move after being enveloped by the golden yellow fog of the thousand eyes, a colorless lotus suddenly bloomed above Yen Di's head. The blurry lotus was like a blurry nebula spreading out and surging. The hundred-eyed demon lord's sword chi slashed towards Yen Di and was blocked by the Grand Simplicity Splendor cloud. The Grand Simplicity Splendor cloud rolled a few times, and the hundred-eyed demon lord's sword chi disappeared like a clay ox entering the ocean, not harming Yen Di at all. On the other side, Yen Di's saber light had already landed on the hundred-eyed demon lord's head. The hundred-eyed demon lord's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Fortunately, the great strength bodhisattva made a move again. Bright Buddha light that resembled white flames descended, blocking Yen Di's saber for the hundred-eyed demon lord. However, as the great strength bodhisattva was distracted, he was immediately surrounded by the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor's thunderbolts. Chapter 1591. As the thunderbolts rumbled, not only did they surround the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva, they even rumbled towards the nine-headed bug, forcing it to temporarily relax its attack on Yen Zhaoga. However, the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva wasn't anxious. Instead, he looked at the immortal exterminating sword in Yen Zhaoga's hand thoughtfully. The Zhu Xian sword's green light extinguished, breaking all laws. But at the same time, it could easily alarm higher-level existences. The winds and clouds in the universe surged. The curtain of lightning that the Southern Extremity Longevity Monarch had created using the grand illusory spatial thunder suddenly became unstable, as if it was enduring a sudden pressure. A Tao Father has been moved. Whether it was the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor himself or the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva and the nine-headed bug, they all knew what was going on. The Tao ancestor did not really descend, but his attention had clearly shifted over. The Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor's secret art could stop the grand heavenly realm Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva and the nine-headed bug from transmitting any information. However, once the Tao Father willed it, there would be nowhere for him to hide. Under such circumstances, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor would have to go into hiding as soon as possible. Yen Zhaoge couldn't continue wielding the immortal exterminating sword either. While the immortal exterminating sword was a weapon, its current owner, Yen Zhaoge, had yet to reach the grand heavenly realm. However, the current situation was special. It was hard to say if any Tao ancestor would make an exception. Yen Zhaoge, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor, and the others immediately forced their opponents to retreat and started leaving the universe. The Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva and the nine-headed great sage immediately switched from defense to offense. The nine-headed bug's rage had also subsided now as it had calmed down, only seeking to delay Yen Zhaoge's group from leaving. Against an opponent of the same level, if one did not want to fight to the death and only wanted to retreat, the chances of success were very high. But as for how to retreat, the situation was different. Without the rock of 10,000 cloudy miles' speed advantage, Yen Zhaoge, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor, and the others wouldn't be able to escape from the great strength Bodhisattva and the nine-headed bug's entanglement. But if he delayed for a while and waited for the others to arrive, it would be hard to say whether he could leave or not. The Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva and the nine-headed bug were well aware of this, which was why they were constantly harassing Yen Zhaoge and the immortal exterminating sword. But right at this moment, the lightning barrier was broken, and a heavy and vigorous force attacked from the outside. Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva's Buddha light and the nine-headed bug's astral wind collided with the dark yellow and heavy radiance. Both the Buddha and the demon frowned. Earth Empress Hodi. It was as though infinite soil had enveloped the surrounding area, helping Yen Zhaoge and the others to block the path of their pursuers. Thunder rumbled from the Southern Extremity Longevity Monarch's side. The lightning bolts landed on the soil, but the soil did not shatter. Instead, innumerable towering trees began to grow furiously. In an instant, a primitive forest suddenly appeared in the vast universe. The area covered by the forest was so vast that it seemed to fill up the entire galaxy. The trees were so tall that they exceeded the imagination of ordinary people. Each of them was like a pillar that supported the heavens. The lush branches and leaves were like a cage, trapping even grand heavenly realm experts like the nine-headed bug and Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva within. In the next moment, astral winds raged like sharp blades, chopping down the towering trees one after another. The bright Buddha's light also illuminated the dark world under the shade of the tree, and it continued to expand outwards, pushing down the jungle. Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva and the nine-headed bug easily broke through the encirclement. However, Yen Zhaoge, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor, and the others were nowhere to be seen. The Bodhisattva eliminating barrier hugged the ear-digging Arhat's corpse, while the cloth sack Arhat's golden body dimmed stood beside him. The two Buddhist Bantis sighed. The hundred-eyed demon lord had yet to recover from his shock, and his expression was extremely ugly. The nine-headed bug transformed back into his human form, and his expression was even uglier than the hundred-eyed demon lord's. Earth Queen, the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva's expression remained calm. He merely looked at the ear-digging Arhat's corpse with a benevolent expression. A silhouette could be vaguely seen moving within the void. After a short while, the Dipankara ancient Buddha and other Buddhist experts, as well as the group of great demons led by the rock of 10,000 cloudy miles, appeared within the universe. Taoist Hodo acted, but she couldn't stop them, said the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva. The Dipankara, ancient Buddha's expression, remained calm. Taoist Hutu acted again. Only, I wonder if Taoist Xuandu would join in as well. He softly said, previously, it was the Jade Illusory Palace. Could it be the Rock Jade Palace this time? Taking the chance to look for the Rock Jade Palace, said the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles coldly. The Dipankara ancient Buddha pondered. If we're talking about the prime clear lineage's treasures, there's one that's rather special. It was so special that it was comparable to the immortal extermination formation. The Six Soul Banner. During the ancient era's investiture of the Gods' War, after the prime clear lord of numinous treasure lost the immortal extermination formation, he refined a new treasure known as the Six Soul Banner. The names of the primordial lord of heaven and virtue, Taoist of guidance, Taoist Xuanti, and two others were written on it. They were all crucial figures in the investiture of the Gods' War. Unfortunately, the 10,000 Immortals formation was destroyed by his opponents. When the Lord of Numinous Treasure was surrounded by the other Tao ancestors, he wanted to activate the Six Soul Banner. However, the long-eared, light-calming immortal, who was in charge of the Six Soul Banner, disobeyed his master's orders and hid the Six Soul Banner amidst the chaos. After the 10,000 Immortals formation battle ended, the long-eared, light-calming immortal brought the Six Soul Banner to meet the other Tao ancestors. There were 6 names on the Six Soul Banner. 2 of them could not withstand the treasure's power, so the Tao ancestors removed their names. Then, the 4 Tao ancestors showed their powers and took a hit from the Six Soul Banner. However, they came out unscathed, leaving everyone in awe. The exhausted Six Soul Banner was originally held by the prime clear lord of Tao and virtue. After the 3 pure ones transcended, the Six Soul Banner returned to the prime clear and was placed back in the Green Turing Palace. However, the Green Turing Palace disappeared without a trace. Whether the Six Soul Banner was still there became a question. This treasure was very special. It was refined by the Lord of Numinous Treasure in order to turn defeat into victory and deal with the other Tao ancestors. Afterwards, it seemed that this intention had failed. However, there were some controversies. For example, was the Six Soul Banner still complete after removing 2 names? Was its power at the Lord of Numinous Treasure's original expectations? Moreover, was the long-eared, light-calming, immortal Six Soul Banner the same as the Tao Ancestor Realm Lord of Numinous Treasure's Six Soul Banner? Of course, why did the Lord of Numinous Treasure not take the banner himself, but let the long-eared, light-calming immortal carry it? As for how powerful the Six Soul Banner was, it was one of the biggest mysteries of the ancient epic. However, this treasure was indeed special. It was so special that the Dipankara ancient Buddha and the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva could go with the flow and pretend to investigate with all their might. It was as if they were being lured away from their territory, diverting their attention, and neglecting the immortal extinguishing ancient sword. Compared to the yellow earth apricot flag, the Six Soul Banner was undoubtedly more convincing. The Green Turing Palace is the same as the Jade Void Palace. It's already empty, right? Asked the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles. The Dipankara ancient Buddha answered, someone might know better. He looked at the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles and the other great demons. The Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles frowned and said to a demon race small saint beside him, contact the central blessed lands of Saha and ask the Dingguang Joyous Buddha. Chapter 1592. The Dingguang Joyous Buddha was also the long-eared Dingguang immortal from ancient times. After betraying the prime clear lineage of Taoism, he joined the Western sect and became a Buddha of the central blessed lands of Saha. When the Maitreya Buddha changed the name of the central blessed lands of Saha to the blessed lands of the White Lotus, the Dingguang Joyous Buddha was gravely injured and fell back to the grand virtual realm. His foundation was damaged, making it hard for him to return to his previous state. In the end, in order to return to the grand heavenly realm, he entered the blessed lands of the White Lotus and attained the heretic Buddhahood. Back then, it was he who had been ordered to protect the sixth soul banner. Later on, he had hidden the sixth soul banner and escaped. That was why both the Dipankara Buddha and the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles thought of him. Hearing the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles and the other great demons still addressing the blessed lands of the White Lotus as the central blessed lands of Saha, the Dipankara ancient Buddha did not show any reaction. He merely stood by the side, quietly. When the reply arrived, the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles frowned and said, according to the Dingguang Joyous Buddha, the sixth soul banner might have really been returned to the Green Turing Palace. Tao friend Dingguang, please help us search. Dipankara, ancient Buddha, said as he placed his palms together. Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva and the other Buddhist venerables stood behind him with solemn expressions. The Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles didn't waste any time and immediately ordered someone to contact the Dingguang Joyous Buddha. Both sides stood together, and the atmosphere was somewhat stifling. The Buddhist venerables' expressions were unfriendly when the ear-digging Arhut died. On the demon race's side, the nine-headed bug and the 100-eyed demon lord were gritting their teeth. Qiu Shou Immortal recalled how he had suffered a loss against Yen Zhaoge and the others when they were searching for the immortal exterminating sword. The sixth soul banner and the celestial slaying sword are important, but we have to capture the remaining members of the Tao faction first, the nine-headed great sage said coldly. Their power has been growing too fast these past few years. The Dipankara ancient Buddha said, this is part of the problem. Otherwise, we wouldn't have joined hands to kill them all these years. At this moment, everyone seemed to be even more united against the same enemy. However, in the depths of their hearts, they had other ideas. If it wasn't for Immortal Luya's reminder, I would have been fooled by you baldies. The Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles thought to himself, let's see what you're up to. Once you start fighting against the Immortal Court and the three clear lineages, I'll take care of all of you. After successfully breaking out of the encirclement, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor and the Queen of Earth's earthly god concealed themselves within the void and vanished. Yen Zhaoge also kept the immortal extermination sword. All right, time to proceed to the next stage. Unfortunately, Elder Lord did not point out the direction to Green Turing Palace. Gao Han sighed. Otherwise, if the sixth soul banner really is in Jade Turing Palace, and we were able to find it, it would be another great opportunity. It's still unknown whether the sixth soul banner is in the roving Jade Palace. We can think about it later. Let's focus on the present, said Yen Zhaoge. Father and son, please don't hold back. Gao Han said with a faint smile, I will continue to set up a deceptive formation here and complete the final act until the truth comes to light. Thank you, Brother Gao, Yen Zhaoge said. If Taoist Gao is able to make it in time, why don't you join in on the fun as well? This concerns the future of our Taoism. Success or failure hinges on this. Gao Han smiled and said, just like what Taoist Yen said, if I can make it in time, I will definitely do my best. Only, I'm not like the grand heavenly immortal who can arrive in time. Hopefully, I won't be late. Then, let us part ways here. Take care, Taoist Gao. Yen Zhaoge and Yen Di transformed into rainbow lights and disappeared into the depths of the cosmos. Gao Han watched them leave and muttered to himself, is the immortal extermination formation really going to reappear within the world? After Yen Zhaoge and Gao Di bade farewell to Gao Han, they started concealing their tracks and went to meet up with Su Fei, Gao Qingxian, and the others. The moment they met, Gao Qingxian did not waste any time. She immediately took out an ancient sword that flickered with red radiance. Only, The immortal trapping sword's hilt was pasted with a talisman. Yan Zhaoge handed the immortal extermination sword to Gao Qingxian and received the immortal trapping sword. Then he took out the clues he obtained from the Taoist Way Heavenly Lord's cave manor and started searching for the final immortal ending sword. Even though he knew that the immortal ending sword was in the hands of the immeasurable Heavenly Lord and the immortal court, he still had to do what he had to do. Since he wanted to lay a trap to trick Yan Zhaoge and the others, the immeasurable Heavenly Lord had to be willing to use the bait. He couldn't possibly bring the immortal ending sword along with him to fight against the future Buddha. The immortal ending sword must have been abandoned somewhere within the void's boundless outskirts. Of course, the immeasurable Heavenly Lord must have taken care of that place as well. As long as Yan Zhaoge and the others approached it, they would be welcomed by a raging storm. The immeasurable Heavenly Lord might have personally descended there after abandoning the future Buddha and the humanly essenced stone fragment. For those of Taoism, nothing ventured, nothing gained. As such, they had to find this place first. This time, the immeasurable Heavenly Lord's technique would serve as a reminder to his opponents. His opponents would remain silent and wait for Yan Zhaoge and the others to walk right into their trap. Yan Zhaoge and the others were also aware of what they were about to face. Everyone was aware of it. However, they still had to continue acting in order to obtain an advantage for themselves. Let's go. After Yan Zhaoge finished his technique, he kept the talisman of new life and led the way. Their destination was a vast starry river. Amidst the surging stars, there were actually majestic water veins rampaging within the void. The cold cosmos didn't freeze, and the blazing stars didn't evaporate as well. The surging river water flowed endlessly, merging with the stars and transforming into a vast starry river. Yan Zhaoge and the others felt their hearts trembling upon seeing this. After the great calamity, the starry river stopped flowing. I didn't expect to see such a majestic water vein. Gao Qingxian praised. Looking at its scale, it's still inferior to the starry river recorded in the ancient texts. However, it should have been formed from a remnant portion of the starry river. After observing for a while, Yan Zhaoge said, compared to the starry river tributary, where bright connection who perished, it's much more majestic. He chuckled. The immortal court really went through a lot of effort to lure us into their trap. Yan Zhaoge was familiar with the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation, which required a large water vein to be laid down. To him, this place seemed like a natural home field. Even if the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva, the nine-headed bug, or even the Dipankara ancient Buddha and the rock of 10,000 cloudy miles arrived, Taoism would still stand a chance against them. However, Yan Zhaoge didn't think so. This place was the immortal court's true home field. Yan Zhaoge's Nine Bends Yellow River Formation originated from the heavenly court's divine palace. The immeasurable Heavenly Lord might also possess the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation's formation diagram. No matter if it was the future Buddha or the Eastern sovereign Tai, they could easily break through this formation. However, Taoism didn't have a Tao ancestor of similar strength to them. While Yan Zhaoge was proficient in formations, a virtual immortal like him had to compete against a Tao ancestor for the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation's control rights. Fortunately, the Tao sect was not completely out of ideas. Humans die for wealth, and birds die for food. Yan Zhaoge stroked his chin and laughed self-mockingly. Then he stepped into the Sky River vein. Chapter 1593. After entering the Heavenly River's water vein, there was an endless flow of the Heavenly River's water. These streams of water would not freeze or boil. Even if they were in the cosmos, the water temperature would not change. It was difficult to describe them as water in the general sense. The river water flowed in an endless stream. It seemed ordinary, but It was extremely heavy. There was an ancient saying, "The sky has the Milky Way, and the earth has the Chun River." It was said that there had been a river in pre-Great Calamity times known as the Heavy River. As its name suggested, the river water was extremely heavy. Even though it was only a single drop, it was already as heavy as 30,000 caddies. The earth could not bear it, so it could only flow and collapse underground, hence the name Sunken River. However, the water in the Milky Way was even heavier than the water in the Chun River. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to bear the weight of those stars that looked small from afar, but were actually enormous. With their current strength, Yen Zhaoge and the others were able to explode stars. As such, there were no obstructions in traversing the heavenly river. Still, walking within, Yen Zhaoge's gaze flickered slightly as he seemed to be thinking about something. Following the guidance of the talismans, they gradually slowed down and felt that they were getting closer and closer to their goal. Finally, Yen Zhaoge's group parted the river water. Gazing into the distance, they could see that there was actually an empty space in the middle of the vast, surging river water. In the blank space, the stars were far away, and the river was flowing around. There, a simple and unadorned long sword floated quietly in the air, looking ordinary and unremarkable. However, as long as the stars and the water showed any signs of approaching, the sword would immediately produce a trace of white gas. It was so faint that it was almost transparent, but this white gas would naturally form a domain, causing everything that came close to it to collapse and disintegrate. It was the immortal slaying ancient sword, one of the 4 immortal slaying swords. It had once been a supreme treasure of the prime clear lineage of Taoism. After the ancient investitures of the Gods' War, it had fallen into the hands of the Jade Clear Bigwig, the lord of the Taoist Wei Heavenly King. It had only disappeared after the Great Calamity in this era. The Taoist Heavenly Lord had died long ago, and this sword had finally reappeared in front of the world today. Seeing this, Yen Zhaoge and the others all held their breaths lightly, under the premise that he already knew there was no surprise, and he might even face unprecedented danger later. Still, looking at the legendary ancient sword, the final sword of the immortal, exterminating 4 swords appearing before them, with only this final step missing, Yen Zhaoge and the others could not help but feel agitated. They looked at each other, nodded, and slowly walked forward. The immortal trapping sword in Yen Zhaoge's hand and the immortal exterminating sword in Gao Qingxuan's hand trembled slightly. The immortal extinguishing sword in front of him also vibrated slightly. However, it was also at this moment that before Yen Zhaoge and the others could approach, the situation suddenly changed. The celestial extermination ancient sword suddenly released rays of terrifying jade light. The water vein of the heavenly river that everyone was in also changed. Talismans made of jade light abruptly appeared in the river, and on every star, that celestial extermination ancient sword suspended in the river, under the reflection of the jade light, in a trance actually gradually turned into a shadow and disappeared. What replaced it was a white jade gate that was faintly discernible in the heavenly river. A vast, lofty, authoritative aura manifested, suppressing Yen Zhaoge and the others to the point that their thoughts became sluggish, virtually unable to move at all. The immeasurable heavenly venerate. Everyone was well aware of this. Inside and outside the jade door, time and space seemed to blur. The minds of Yen Zhaoge and the others were slightly dazed, as they could only feel that while they were standing outside the door, at some unknown point in time, they seemed to have already entered within. The might of the Tao realm was fully manifested at this moment. The immeasurable heavenly venerate didn't even truly descend upon this heavenly river. Instead, through the immortal extermination ancient sword that he had secretly refined and the mechanism he had set up, he had reversed the heavens and earth, intending to suck Yen Zhaoge and the others away and bring them to his side. However, Yen Zhaoga and the others were already prepared for this. The water of the heavenly river broke apart. As the void shook, one after another powerful existence descended. Some were blazing like fire, some were piercingly cold like swords, some were surging like thunder, and some were as heavy as the ground. After being shown by the jade light of the heavenly river, these miraculous scenes lost some of their miraculousness, and their true forms were revealed. One of them walked in front. He had a tall figure, and his hair was short, which was different from the current world's customs. His hair stood up, and his facial features were masculine and resolute. His entire body was filled with blazing power. It had been a long time since the exalted fire luminary, Suo Mingzhang. Cut! A deep voice resounded. The short-haired man straightened his palm like a saber and made a downward slashing motion in the air. Within the heavenly river, rays of jade light drifted everywhere like broken ribbons of light. The jade door's action of capturing Yen Zhaoga and the others was instantly stopped. At the same time, the incongruence Divine Mother, who was dressed in white and had the aura of a lone sharp sword, came closer. She extended her hand towards the immortal ending ancient sword that was already illusory and was about to disappear. The southern extremity longevity emperor, who wore a crown, and the Earth Queen, who was dressed in luxurious clothes, appeared together. A few Taoism heavenly lords who were still active in the current world descended together. However, the white jade door that shocked the universe was also starting to materialize from illusory. Its power was getting stronger and stronger, and its aura was getting clearer and clearer. It was also preventing the incongruence Divine Mother from retrieving the sword. The immeasurable heavenly Lord had decided to descend here with his true body. At this moment, as heavenly music lingered, the great Taoist Xiandu, who sat on the 9-colored lotus throne and had the 10 extremities crane cover, also appeared in the heavenly river basin. He was holding a zither with only 4 strings on it. The great Taoist Xiandu didn't pluck the strings. Instead, he held the zither and directly stepped into the jade door. At this moment, it was as if a shapeless force was plucking the strings of the zither. With a buzzing sound, the remaining string on the zither broke once again. As soon as the zither string broke, a ray of radiance rose from the broken zither, transforming into a massive 8 trigrams diagram. It directly stopped the process of the jade door turning from illusory to tangible. The jade radiance in the universe seemed to have frozen. The immortal ending sword that was about to disappear was also left behind. The incongruence Divine Mother immediately took the sword. The immortal exterminating 4 swords finally returned to the 3 clear lineages' hands. After entering the incongruence Divine Mother's hands, the immortal ending sword was still trembling. Jade radiance flowed on the surface of the sword. This sword was once refined by the immeasurable heavenly Lord. At this moment, its owner was still the immeasurable heavenly Lord. However, the incongruence Divine Mother's expression remained unchanged. As she took the immortal ending sword, she also took out another sword. It was the Qingping sword. After the prime, clear, numinous treasure, Heavenly Lord's ancestor transcended, this sword fell into the incongruence Divine Mother's hands. In the past, when Gao Qingxian and the other roving Jade 7 opened up the roving Jade heavens, they had borrowed the power of this sword. Unlike the immortal exterminating 4 swords, the Qingping sword was very special. It was difficult for the incongruence Divine Mother to use it as a weapon to defend against enemies. However, this sword had its own wonders. At this moment, it was put to use. The incongruence Divine Mother placed it together with the immortal ending sword. After being shown by the Qingping sword radiance, the jade radiance on the immortal ending sword immediately began to fade. Fushi's remnant zither. At this moment, a voice sounded in the universe. It was distant and ethereal, and it was hard to tell whether it was male or female. It seemed to have come from the white jade door, but it also seemed to be ringing in everyone's ears. Its tone was calm and without any fluctuations. There are still 3 more strings. As the voice sounded, the solidified jade radiance began to glow with vitality again. The 8 trigrams diagram on the white jade door also began to become blurry. The jade door gradually became clear again. At the same time, Buddhist chanting suddenly sounded in the sky. The water of the heavenly river split apart, and Buddhist light shone. It was boundless and immeasurable, and it also descended. Chapter 1594. Under the majestic sound of Sanskrit, the light of Buddha illuminated the universe, and one green lotus after another arrived in the heavenly river. On the green lotus sat the Dipankara ancient Buddha, Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva, Buddha of sandalwood merit, victorious fighting Buddha, and many other Buddhist experts. It wasn't just the Buddhist experts who were searching for the awakened sky cosmos. A portion of the Buddhist Bantis who were on the other side of the battlefield with the demon race were also summoned back to participate in today's battle. It's really the Fushi Zither. Did fellow Taoist Luhya exchange it for you? Ancient Buddha Randang looked at the zither in great Taoist Master Xian Du's arms. There are still 3 zither strings. The Fushi zither was rumored to be the personal treasure of Emperor Shi, who was one of the 3 sovereigns in the Archean era, along with Emperor Hua and Emperor Dong. It was heavily damaged, and its whereabouts were unknown after the Archean era. Now that it had finally reappeared in the world, only 4 strings were left of the broken zither, be it Tao Lord Luya or the great Taoist Master Xian Du. None of them could take the initiative to control the Fushi zither to fight against the enemy. However, when enduring the might of the Tao realm, it could be used to block a Tao ancestor for a moment. However, every time he used it, a string would break until it was completely exhausted. Now, the great Taoist Master Xian Du had used that zither to temporarily stop the heavenly lord of the immeasurable from descending and help the goddess Wudong obtain the immortal slaying ancient sword. However, the Kane Taiji diagram quickly dissipated. Clearly, it would only last for a moment. The immeasurable heavenly venerate continued to move. The white jade door flashed, and the second string of the Fushi zither in great Taoist Master Xian Du's arms began to tremble. But right at this moment, the jade gate suddenly shook violently. It was as if on the other side, the immeasurable heavenly Lord himself was being disturbed and obstructed. That's good. Yen Zhaoge, the great Taoist Xian Du, and the others let out a sigh of relief. The one obstructing the heavenly Lord of the immeasurable might very well be the future Buddha. The immeasurable heavenly Lord had originally intended to stop pestering the future Buddha, directly abandoning that humanly essence stone fragment, and allowing the future Buddha to refine it as he himself would descend here and take down Yen Zhaoge and the others, as well as the immortal exterminating 4 swords. However, the future Buddha, who already knew of his scheme, temporarily put aside his own process of refining the humanly essence stone shards and turned around to attack the immeasurable heavenly Lord, making it difficult for him to escape. The positions of both sides had been reversed. Yen Zhaoge, Yang Jian, and the others had purposely leaked the information about the immortal ending ancient sword being in the immortal court to the demon race and the blessed lands of the White Lotus. The demon race and the blessed lands of the White Lotus naturally wished to obtain the immortal extermination formation as well. Because of the immortal extinguishing sword, the immeasurable heavenly Lord clearly had the advantage of striking first. The future Buddha would definitely not allow him to succeed. The 2 heretic Tao Fathers were once more locked in a fierce, explosive contest. Of course, This didn't mean that the future Buddha or the Eastern monarch Tai were helping the orthodox Taoism. They were doing this for their own sake. Yen Zhaoge could easily guess that other than the Dipankara ancient Buddha and the other Buddhism bigwigs, the demon race great sages, led by Taoist Lu Ye, had already arrived. The battle between the two heretic sects, which was already entangled with each other, became even more intense. In this battle, heroes had gathered and powerful enemies were everywhere. However, for the direct disciples of the Tao sect, being able to maintain the battle at a level below the Tao realm was already a blessing in disguise, and it was difficult for them to ask for more. Even so, they would still face attacks from all sorts of powerful enemies. In fact, it was not impossible for the Tao ancestor to temporarily put aside their conflict and still attack them first. If they won this battle, it would be akin to a carp leaping through the dragon's gate, gaining boundless opportunities. If they lost, they might be completely annihilated, and Taoism's direct lineage's backbone would be completely shattered. Yen Zhaoge and the others were united. They could only fight. The North Ocean clone, Shui Fei, and Pan Pan simultaneously manifested their golden bodies of the great sage, and their demonic qi surged towards the skies. Suo, Mingzhang, Yen Di, and the others also took the initiative to welcome the Western Paradise's Buddhas. However, at the same time, the heavenly river that everyone was in suddenly surged with numerous formation patterns, which flickered with radiance. The originally clear river water instantly turned dark yellow. At the same time, gusts of black winds blew by. Nine Ben's Yellow River Formation. The immortal courts people didn't appear in large numbers like the Western Pure Lands Buddhist Bantis. Only the percussion Heavenly Lord appeared. He stood on a faraway star and didn't approach it. His silhouette disappeared within the black winds and Yellow River along with the star. The Nine Ben's Yellow River Formation here was created by the immeasurable Heavenly Lord. Only the immeasurable Heavenly Lord had yet to personally descend. He was guided by the percussion Heavenly Lord. However, even so, Yen Zhaoge and the others could already feel its might. Even a grand Heavenly Lord had to be wary of it. Although there was no chaotic golden dipper, the seclusion immortal mantra and immortal bewitching pill personally refined by the Tao ancestor still managed to mesmerize everyone. What goes around comes around. Yen Zhaoge laughed at himself. However, he wasn't afraid. The incongruence Divine Mother's expression was calm. She was the only Taoism's grand heavenly immortal who wasn't prepared to make a move. She had a more important mission, which was to cleanse the immeasurable Heavenly Lord's traces within the immortal ending sword with the green duckweed sword's assistance. She handed the immortal slaughtering sword over to Yen Zhaoge and Gao Qingxian. This time, Yen Zhaoge and the others went all out. They risked the danger of the four ancient swords falling into the enemy's hands and brought all three swords with them. Gao Qingxian and her clone arrived together. Yen Zhaoge immediately started establishing the immortal extermination formation. After attaining the 5 Qis unifications, with his exquisite formation attainments and the assistance of Gao Qingxian and her clone, the three of them could establish the immortal extermination formation. Although the formation before them wasn't complete, its might was already extremely ferocious. When the incongruence Divine Mother successfully refined the immortal ending sword and gathered all 4 swords, the immortal extermination formation would be completed. By then, the tables would be turned. As the surging golden radiances surged, the ferocious sword intent engulfed the entire area. The illusory sword lights transformed into 4 doors, which stood at the 4 corners of the formation. The immortal extermination sword, immortal slaughtering sword, and immortal trapping sword hovered above 3 of the doors. White radiances condensed into the illusory immortal ending sword on the 4th door as well. Under the immortal extermination formation's presence, The destructive baleful Qi continuously shook the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation, formed by the surrounding Heavenly River. Two formations that were infamous for several eras were set up at the same spot, causing a rare clash. One of them was set up by the Tao ancestor, and the other's infamy was missing a corner. Although the Immortal Extermination Formation was set up as a backup, the number one slaughtering formation in history was too ferocious. The golden radiances and yellow mists it stirred continuously clashed against the black winds and Yellow River. The Immortal Extermination Formation setup was affected by the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation, causing its progress to slow down. The four doors rose and fell unsteadily. The ancient swords hanging on the doors were also shaking, unable to exert any force. Similarly, the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation's power was dispersed by the Immortal Extermination Formation, rendering it ineffective. The black winds blew and stopped, while the dark Yellow River rose and fell. At this moment, the two sides continued to wrestle, causing the entire Heavenly River to tremble. It was as if an enraged dragon was rampaging within the void's outskirts. Although the Immortal Extermination Four Swords had fallen into the hands of the Taoism lineage, the Dipankara ancient Buddha, and the other Buddhism bigwigs didn't seem dejected or fearful. Instead, they all pounced towards the Immortal Extermination Formation, which was unable to unleash its full might. The group of Taoism grand, heavenly immortals didn't retreat and immediately went forward. The golden body of the great sage formed by Yen Zhaoge's North Ocean clone took the lead. He raised the Ru-I golden cudgel and struck towards the victorious fighting Buddha. Both sides were fighting for time. Within the Heavenly River, a battle instantly broke out.